Custer County Board of County Commissioners meeting will come to order. Let the record show today is March 20th. The time is 9 o'clock a.m. I would like to ask our special guest, Miss Christy Doon, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Welcome. Good morning. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yep, Commissioner Candid.
Here.
Chairman Funk.
Present.
Commissioner Prince.
I'm present.
Attorney Klitzman.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Got to look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Clerk to the board. Present.
Well done.
It's not a norm.
Maybe preparation for board meetings might have to include a practice roll call. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Amendments to the agenda, gentlemen?
None. I have none.
Nor do I, as long as everybody has the most current agenda that shows the discussion with Ms. Christie at the beginning. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
It does.
Audience introduction. Ms. Christie, would you like to start?
Christy Doon, Regional Manager with the Colorado Department of Local Affairs.
That's big. Jackie Bubas, Sentinel.
John Spark, Wetmore.
Bruce Barr, Wetmore.
Sorry.
Alderman Gray, Wetmore.
Linda Poole, St. Isabel Land Protection Trust.
I get emotional. Welcome. Thank you all for introducing yourself. Good morning. Approval of the minutes. Chair would entertain a motion to approve
I
February 28th, March 5th, March 6th, March 6th special meeting.
Yeah, I move to approve all the ones you just read, Tom.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 28th, March the 5th, March the 6th, and a special meeting on March the 6th. Discussion. I thought so too. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Sorry, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Minutes have been approved. Commissioner items. Mr. Prince, would you like to begin this morning?
Thank you. I'd be happy to. Our last meeting, after our last meeting, we had the pleasure of hiring a wonderful gentleman as our new BSO employee. Seems to hit the road running. I attended the planning and zoning workshop after that. And at 4 o'clock that evening, I met with the group regarding amendments to the marijuana ordinance. We were discussing in that were the sheriff was there, and so was Sergeant Winkle. Wentz, thank you. Buck.
Oh,
Buck.
yes, sorry.
The meeting went extremely well, and the sheriff's here, he can attest to it, that the changes they were asking for were inconsequential to the purpose that the sheriff originally asked us to join, or to form this amendment, this ordinance, I mean. So sheriff felt comfortable with it, Buck felt comfortable with it. The people there were comfortable with it, it made me comfortable with it, so that worked out really well.
So you're comfortable?
Yeah, it's good. I sent it on to Mr. Clanus. When we left the meeting, the participants didn't ask for anything that was going to jeopardize the purpose of doing this in the first place. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
So since you brought it up, when are we going to talk about it?
29th.
29th. What on the agenda?
I just want to let you know where we are on it. On Friday the 8th, because we all went to the executive lunch, which is a wonderful program that we're all doing. Had the tourism board on the 12th. Had jury duty on the 13th, but fortunately I didn't go. I just thought I'd throw that out there. We had the Upper Arkansas Regional meeting on the 14th. We all attended that. It was interesting towards the end, that's all I can tell you. It was a tourism workshop and a early childhood development meeting I planned on attending. Unfortunately, the Arkansas Upper Ark last week too long. Let's see. Then we had a tourism meeting on the 18th again. I met with Mike Lehman about Beckwith Ranch. We had a task force meeting on the 19th and the strategic plan meeting last night. And that's all I did on that.
I hope you are going to be involved with Friends of the Beckwith Ranch at some level,
I'm a pro bono attorney and have been for many years.
and we'll continue in that capacity.
Absolutely.
Good, good. Commissioner King, is that also? Right.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
You didn't have much to do, did you, Jay? I'll join you in that. Yeah, we, a lot of time on the airport grant. I'm glad Chrissy's here. I was surprised to see you. Thanks for coming over. But we got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed on that. And Christy, you helped a lot. Thank you for your input on what we needed to get done. And the airport board meeting, of course, we're regrouping. Also got a hold of the OT6 Ranch to let them know we're going to start planning for the next phase of construction here soon. We got to get together and see how we're going to schedule things, especially based on this grant timing. The Upper Ark was interesting. We can talk about some of that later. Strat planning wise, I thought that was a very good meeting last night. I was surprised we had a lot of good input. We had about 30 some odd people there.
I counted 35.
35, yeah. And had a lot of input from people with good comments on what we can do to, even at that time when we made a point that it was still not too late to help insert a few thoughts on it. Working roads and bridges, you know, the spring is here when the bluebirds are out and the mud is thawing out. And so it's hitting the roads pretty hard. Getting lots of people saying, where's road and bridge? How come they're not graded? Well, they're all over the place doing that, and it's hard to keep up with it. And even some comments down here in Wetmore on a couple, what is it, Road 387, I think it is. It's kind of a narrow little pathway and a lot of snow in it. VSO selection process, I thought, went well, and we got a good candidate, I think. Well, not a candidate anymore.
No.
We voted on a very good candidate.
Yeah.
And did we make public the name
Yes.
in the meeting afterwards? We know.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
it's
didn't
fine.
want to repeat it here.
No, you're
Just
fine.
Make sure everybody knows. Planning and zoning was a good discussion on what we need to look forward to. We got to get back to work on that. And that lunch between us and the mayors of the two towns and the water district and that is a very good discussion on what we're doing, how we can do things, and brings ideas up that we can take back from our perspective and their from the town's perspective, and then figure out how we might work together on certain different things that come up. I like that. And other than that, I think we'll just sit and wait and see what happens at this meeting to add to the next report. Thanks.
Thank you. As you gentlemen certainly have attested to, we've been busy with some meetings. I'll just go through mine as well. I can't remember when we gave the last report. I'm assuming it was the 6th.
6th of
So
March.
that afternoon, of course, we did conduct the VSO interviews. We had some gentlemen that assisted in that selection process. They did not vote on the final candidate, but they did give us their recommendations. Bob Dreyer, Randy Knight, and James Phelps, as well as Donna Hobby, obviously.
Bossy.
Pardon?
Bossy was there. You're talking about who was at the meeting?
Yeah. Dreyer,
Boss, when you, or Bossy?
no,
No.
Roger Watkins.
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry.
And Roger Watkins sat in on that. So, yeah, I was pleased with the outcome. And certainly John is, I think, doing a great job. I've been over a couple times to visit with him, and he is, yesterday was in the office trying to schedule hotel rooms and stuff. Did he get that done? Good. To go to a conference in Cleveland, Ohio in June to get his first certification, which we asked both candidates if they would be willing to do that, and certainly they agreed to, and John is following up on that, so I was encouraged by that. March 7th, we had a workshop with the planning and zoning officer in the commissioner's room, the gentlemen have attested to. Then the executive roundtable. I'm hoping maybe we can have an open and sincere discussion about who should regularly attend that. And I don't know, I think we're going to probably end up
I was gonna bring
hurting
that
some
up.
feelings
We probably
because
need to do that.
we've already kind of started the precedence for that. But
What,
the idea-
what you're saying is there's a lot of people come that don't allow us to, you get bogged down a little bit.
yeah, my perspective was originally when Mayor Winky and I talked about that was really a meeting between the commissioners, the two mayors, to kind of keep the governments within the county working collaboratively together. It's grown from that, so we'll see. I don't know. You had a comment, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that the history was it was just to get the executives of the county and towns together. I would probably be in favor of going back to that gender. However, if we have something that one of us brings up, anybody, then we could have another lunch a week or two later and invite as a guest speaker if that's necessary.
So that's specific.
I really like the idea of just the executives sitting down and talking about what's going on in their respective areas of responsibility. But we had road and bridge people there, we had CDOT there. I mean, it was out of hand, I thought. Just
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
What mayors were involved?
Mayor Winky from West Cliff, Mayor Laswell from Silver Cliff. And then on the 12th, I attended the Republican Central Committee meeting over in the Annex. On the 14th, I sat in, as did Commissioner Prince, on a permanent civil protection order hearing in the courthouse with one Mr. Mark Howard, who has certainly been the bane of my email existence, and so I was interested to see how that was going to go. That restraining order was not put in place on a permanent basis, but hopefully going through that process may alleviate some issues. I would maybe ask counsel during the attorney's report if what his perspective has been since then, but you can certainly opt out of that. Also attended the Upper Ark Water Conservancy District meeting in Salida, and then sat in on the Tourism Board meeting on the 18th. So, and then I didn't update my schedule, but obviously yesterday afternoon and last evening attended the two meetings for the strategic planning process, which is kind of starting to wind down, so be interesting to see how things go forward from here. A couple other things I wanted to mention real quick. We did receive an invoice from Mr. Kastner, who we invited to come up and visit with the commissioners, so I'm sure that will be coming through the voucher system as it should be. I just wanted to let you know that, and we're scheduled to pay that out of our account, account number 311, which is the community outreach account. So when we get our voucher packets, you might keep an eye out for that. The other thing I wanted to bring forward this morning quickly is to request, with your permission, to move forward and schedule a workshop with the employee supervisors, including elected officials and others. I think we need to start moving forward with the process to account for our employees' overtime, comp time, sick, vacation, personal days, all of that. I've done some little research in that, and we are sorely behind the curve on doing a good job of tracking that. So I was hoping that maybe the afternoon of our mid-month, no, that won't, well, we could, because we're gonna be at the
Well,
airport.
we come back.
But we could come back. So I think that's April 14th or 15th. I'll have to look here real quick. But certainly I would go to all the people involved and ask them. Yeah, 17th is a Wednesday. So that's a target date I would like to pursue, if it's all right with you gentlemen, and see if we couldn't meet about 2 o'clock and ask all the supervisors, if they're in a supervisory role, I would expect them to be at that workshop. And
Good idea.
Sit down and have a conversation. Doesn't mean we can't talk about it a little bit between now and then, but I spoke with Ms. Hobby, and she certainly feels that something needs to be done. And so I just think this is an opportunity for us to move forward. So with your permission, I would tentatively schedule that 2 o'clock on the 17th of April.
Then we have our meeting at the airport.
Yes, yeah. So we should be done and back by then.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Thank you. We'll just call it a supervisor's workshop. That's all right. Appreciate that. That concludes my report.
Mr. Commissioner?
Yes.
A quick question. Does the payroll system manage all that?
Yeah. Great
So
question.
then, So then in this.
That is the question.
This meeting that I'm expecting, get an email to be in attendance of, so are you going to offer some solutions as far as what other counties do? Like having a serviceable payroll system?
I'm certainly going to offer some suggestions of what
Okay.
I believe this county needs to do. But I would
Roger that.
assume it might
Okay.
include.
I just want to make sure that you weren't expecting us to come with
No.
solutions to that.
I'm not.
Okay, thank you.
I'm hoping those supervisors will come to hear some potential solutions to this problem. And between now and then, I will have conversations with supervisors that have something in place, such as yourself. But that's certainly not countywide. So, great question.
Sure, thanks.
Anything else, gentlemen? His Honor, the Attorney, would you have any items, sir?
I think I got a few things I can talk about.
Nice.
Since you brought up the hearing last week against, and this is now fully public as far as I'm
And
concerned.
that's why I didn't
Right, we,
have a problem.
gentleman's name is Mark Howard. He lives just across the county line in Fremont County. If you go up Copper Gulch Road and into Fremont County, he lives up there. He's been harassing Custer County elected officials and some local private individuals and businesses for going on 3 years now with incessant emails and filing complaints. He's filed essentially the same complaint against Sheriff Byerly since 2016, alleging he's filed complaints with the Colorado Civil Rights Division alleging that he's been discriminated against. And he also files complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and not just against the sheriff. He filed one recently against our Department of Human Services that was dismissed. All of these are dismissed. Mr. Howard has filed hundreds of complaints, similar complaints, against a large number of elected officials and governmental agencies, all the way to the governor's office. And just for the record, there is a task force that's been monitoring his behavior to determine, there's a feeling that he is a security risk, and to try to determine what level that might be based on some of his recent behavior. Some of the, and I'm not going to disclose, I said, talk about the governor's office. I'm not going to go into a list of all the others that are involved in this, but they actually raised their level of security because of the concern that he has severe mental issues. It's not just being angry about something. It's he has very tenuous touch with reality. If you read any of his emails, or try to read his emails, which are almost impossible to read because they go on for pages and pages and pages, and there isn't any rational thought process. It's very hard to figure out what's going on. But anyway, what I did, since everybody else was sort of hemming and hawing as to, well, what should we do about this, I decided to take him to court as an individual, not as the county attorney, but as an individual, to seek a civil protection order, a restraining order against him, to prohibit him from continuing to inundate me with these emails, because I've received at least a couple hundred over the past couple of years. I painted the bullseye on my back a few years ago when I sent him a very nasty email telling him to quit filing cases against the sheriff and quit bothering the county commissioners and other county employees with his crazy emails. And ever since then, he's really been unloading on me. We had the hearing, even though the permanent restraining order was denied, I think it was very beneficial because this gentleman sits at his computer, I think day and night, filing complaints, sending out emails. He's got, I don't know how many hundreds of people on his email list that he sends these communications out to. And it was very obvious he did not want to have to be dragged out of his cave there, his lair, like some animal. That was part of this, is to get him out in public, bring him into court where he was very uncomfortable and actually very subdued. His behavior in court compared to what his behavior is like, at least through his emails, was very different. But for legal reasons, I'm not going to go into at any length. The permanent restraining order was denied, but I think it still served the purpose of letting him know that, because he lives in a fantasy world, and some of his fantasies were very clearly punctured by questions the judge asked and questions I asked about his claim about having extensive law enforcement experience himself, and things like that, that he couldn't answer questions like that, and was just very evasive because he doesn't have any previous law enforcement experience. Bottom line is, since then, there haven't been any, well, I guess he sent one to Jay, but now suddenly, even though Commissioner Prince has been one of the evil people, the last one, and Jay shared it with me, he now wants to hire Jay to be his attorney to do battle with Fremont County. The rule for a long, long time in Custer County has been nobody responds to him. And nobody was responding to him, that aggravates him because he loves to engage. If somebody does respond to him, then he's got a pen pal and will just smother somebody with emails. So Commissioner Prince isn't going to respond to that. And I also saw one that Sheriff Byerly shared with me, because he's always thought the sheriff and the sheriff in Fremont County were evil and ganging up on him as well. And
In cahoots is the word.
yeah, and now suddenly he realizes that Sheriff Byerly's been a great guy all along, and it was me the whole time that was causing the problem. So it's not necessarily over with, but he's changed his tone since the court proceeding, and we'll see where it goes and keep monitoring it. As I said, there's some local businesses that are very unhappy because they had to waste a lot of time dealing with complaints he's filed alleging discrimination, when it turns out he never even applied for jobs with him. He just said he applied for a job. And the Civil Rights Commission treats all of these as if they have merit initially, even though I talked to them about it. And I said, you got to know this guy's crazy and he's wasting your time. And the person I talked to said, well, it gives him an outlet to vent. So by giving him an outlet there, it's inconveniencing, I don't know how many people, having to respond to these complaints. So anyway, it's out there, and they're keeping an eye on him, and if he does get to a level where he does appear to be a danger, then there are some remedies that are possibly available. And there are other legal remedies that are available to me. This was just sort of a first step to see where we were at.
Clint, you said you didn't get a permanent restraining order. Were you able to get a temporary?
Well, I had a temporary
Oh, you
one
did?
initially. You can get that on the basis of filing the complaint and setting out sufficient facts. So the judge had granted that, and then that was on February, I think maybe around February 18th, something like that. And then we had the hearing last week on March 14th, so it was temporary for a while. My own personal feeling is he's going to leave me alone at least for a while. I may start seeing emails coming again, but I think he's going to avoid me because he knows that now we're going to stand up to him and fight back, and that's the whole. He doesn't want to have to be pulled out from where he's comfortable and have to come out into public. He tried repeatedly to get the judge to let him participate in the hearing by telephone, and she wouldn't let him do it. So he did show up in court. There was some speculation as to whether he would or not. And that's where we're at on that. If anything, major comes up, I'll report it in attorney items.
Okay, thank you.
But let's see, we had the VSO selection, had two candidates. The unsuccessful candidate wrote a letter asking some questions about the selection process, or sent an email, I guess. I wrote a letter in response to that, telling them that the Board of County Commissioners was very fortunate to have such two outstanding candidates apply for that. It was, they both were very, very well qualified for the position. It was a difficult selection. So I sent him that letter to answer his questions. The marijuana ordinance that had come up for second reading, and there were questions about it, so we postponed that so there could be a meeting, and Commissioner Prince gave me a copy of what the revisions were. So I was going to ask to have it on the agenda, but I guess it is on the agenda for the 29th.
Yes, sir.
I would prefer not to have to read the whole thing again. We had a first reading. There are some very minor changes, and I believe that by identifying those at a second reading, that would be sufficient. We could do the second reading, and then if the board is so inclined to approve it at that time, so that would be my recommendation. We do it that way, just to have a second reading on it with these slight changes.
Read the entire document?
I do have to read the entire document, but I don't want to start, back at the beginning and have the first reading and then wait and then do a second reading later, so I do have to read
Schedule
it
17
in
minutes
full.
for that.
So would you envision reading the document first and then, because we've already had a motion, so probably the chair would entertain a motion to amend that document. Do you want that motion and subsequent discussion to occur first, because it may not go to a second reading? I mean, the potential would be there.
Is the motion, there was a motion to accept it on second reading previously? I don't remember.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay,
No.
because there's no motion pending then at this point.
No. My point is, if you went through the whole thing and reread the entire document, and then there was a motion to, well, it wouldn't be a negative motion, but let's assume there was a motion to not approve the document as amended. I'm just wondering if we should discuss the amendments first before we read the entire document. That would be.
We can certainly do that before I actually start the second reading. I can identify the areas that change, the minor areas, like, where previously there was limited to 1,000 cubic feet.
Right.
That language was taken out, things like that. I can certainly identify that, and then
We
if
can
you're
have that
inclined to go-
discussion and then
Right.
move forward from there. And if the commission moves to approve the amendments, then we can read the document as amended. Does that make sense?
That's fine to do it that way.
Yeah, we really do need to understand why the amendments are okay. And so you can only do
Right.
that by talking about it.
And we could talk about it, but I just hate to have Clint read that entire
Yeah,
document.
that
Then we
makes
have that
sense.
discussion and go, no, I don't like it. Let's read it again.
Right.
And now we've gone through that energy to read that 7 or 8 page document again.
And that's fine.
Okay.
Like, we can do it that way where I can point them out.
Which means, I think, yeah.
And Shannon, I'm sure, will be there, and Jay was at the meeting, so he can explain also why these changes were made. Okay, let's see. I had an inquiry, y'all waiting for your...
Well, they both just went south.
Decided to.
Mine didn't.
Something. It's fine, I'm listening.
It didn't.
Every word.
Some people just hang themselves when they start talking.
That's right.
There was a question about getting the minutes for Upper Ark meetings. And I don't know if that's something you want me to go forward with, and if so, what meetings you're talking about.
Yeah, I went back and checked their website, and as I indicated to you, the minutes that appeared to be on their website were from November and December of 2018, and then, of course, their minutes up to this last, not on the 14th, but the meeting prior to that, where they had their minutes approved. So I certainly have been accused of not paying attention in those meetings and missed the references to the proposed augmentation plan. I have not been able to find that in those minutes. So that's why I thought if we did either a core request or just a polite request for those minutes that specifically mentioned that from their secretary, Kimberly, then we could have documentation of that.
And that's something you probably, I'm not sure if you're ready at this time to give me that direction or whether you want to discuss it.
Yeah, I'm assuming the Colorado Open Records Act,
They ought to
we
have
would
it.
have to pay a fee
They're
to
out
do
there.
that. They pay us, anybody pays us on a core request, but I'd like to at least try to take the polite route first without having to go through a core request. But I've asked for a couple of things, have not received those, so.
And I would need to know what time frame do you want minutes of every meeting back through a certain date, or how?
Well, technically, I suppose, yes, for the year of 2018. It would be nice just to ask them to do a word search on the minutes that included the proposed augmentation plan that included Custer County. I don't know if they'll do that. They may say, if you want them, turn in a core request, pay us, and we'll provide them. I don't know. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. Who's guarding the forest?
Any conversation about that? Any thoughts,
Able-bodied
gentlemen?
staff.
Absolutely feel that we should get those and find out. They've made accusations that we need to verify whether that was actually in the meeting or not. I feel it's imperative that we get those minutes.
I'm assuming they're,
Did you shut yours down?
How come you guys are on
Go
the
ahead,
same
sir.
schedule there? That's odd.
Yeah.
I'm assuming those meetings are recorded also, you know?
That I can't answer. I'm not aware of a voice recording of those
They are.
meetings. Kimberly does take those written notes during the meeting. I've only seen written
Well,
minutes.
let me make a polite request initially and see how cooperative they'll be and do it that way.
If you need Kimberly's email or whatever, I
If
can
you would,
send that to you.
send that to me, please. All right, one other thing then, under attorney items, back at the first of the year, the county sold the old gravel pit to Big E Ranch, and I prepared the paperwork. The owner, or the managing partner, because it's Big E Ranch, a LTD, it's a limited partnership, contacted me. She had just received a title insurance policy, said the name was wrong. It was identified as Big E Ranch, a limited liability partnership, and she said it's actually a family limited partnership. But then she said she'd prefer to just have it shown as Big E Ranch LTD and not even mention the partner, which is exciting. She can take title however she wants. So I prepared a correction deed to that effect, which shows everything is the same. except that it shows that the grantee is Big E Ranch LTD per her request. And at the end of it, I have a note that says this correction deed has been executed and recorded to correct an error in a prior deed of county concerning this tract, which was recorded January 2, 2019 at reception number 234292, where the grantee was named as Big E Ranch LTD, a limited liability partnership. The name of the grantee should appear as Big E Ranch LTD. I don't think this requires a motion or anything, it's just correcting an error at her request. And so I prepared this, and you need to, Tom, you would need to sign this again as the chairman, and Kelly would need to notarize it. So I give this to you, and if you could just take it and have Kelly do that and send it off to her after it's been recorded. And I have nothing else under attorney.
All right, thank you, appreciate your work. Administrative assistant items?
Just finished the ready grant for the airport. That's about it.
Good, thank you, appreciate that. So you've been involved in 2 grants since you've taken over.
Yep.
One for the
Landfill.
recycle, for the landfill.
And then this one for the fuel
Ready
system
grant for the
upgrade.
fuel farm at the airport. Good, appreciate your work, thank you on that. Public comment? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Unfinished business, gentlemen?
None from me.
Nor do I. Okay, move on to new business. Public comment will be allowed for each item. Action item that the board will vote on in some manner, so I will certainly try to remember to offer that opportunity. First item of business under new business is the discussion of the EDA requirement that would fulfill part of our obligations to them. We've asked Ms. Christy Doon to come down from DOLA. Welcome and good morning. The Economic Development Company here in West Cliff had asked the commissioners to ask DOLA if DOLA would consider releasing some funds from that proposed $1 million grant to help defray the cost of yet another study, as I understand it. And the purpose of that study would be to try to bring under contract landowners for the potential 6 sites of that tower. So I would certainly turn the floor over to you, Ms. Christie, if you have some comments, or do we need further discussion? I don't know how we want to proceed exactly, but the Economic Development Company provided us with a document, and it's actually a bid from a company, SSC, Selective Site Consultants. You have a copy of that, you indicated to me. So they're looking here for this price, this bid was for $11,250 to try to bring 6 landowners under a letter of intent contract and then do a fair market value report on some property. And then a meeting, I'm assuming in West Cliff by an SSC representative. There's been a couple questions. One, is this something that DOLA has done in the past? Is there a process for that, or are we in uncharted waters? And then the second question was, and I guess this is for the commissioners as well as yourself, Christy, was the intent from the beginning to purchase land for these towers or to lease the land? So those are the questions that I'm faced with. Certainly I would offer my co-commissioners an opportunity to speak, and then we can...
Okay, yeah, the other questions that come to mind are, it says, I guess we ought to let everybody know, they're requesting money in order to get, as Tom said, the 6 proposed projects are located they want a signed letter of intent from each landowner indicating the owner's intent to negotiate with Custer County. Is that just for the location of the tower, or what about the right-of-way going into their property or off of forest and all that? Would it include all that? Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm assuming that long-term lease, we're talking about 25 years, would include access right away. Yeah.
You would think. Just it's a curiosity question. And then, of course, from my perspective, we already asked these questions before we submitted the grant, because it was clear that you have to know where they're going to be located. And before you go, you need a business case that says, all right, do we have the landowners, what's it going to cost to do that, and the rights of way, as well as you need to have an understanding if they're located where a cellular user, a customer. This is critical to us, the county, because we need people to pay the rent on these towers so we can pay for the cost of servicing the maintaining the roads and the towers if there were problems. So I'm wondering, this company, and they also represent, this guy represented it as a conversation between the county and SSC regarding, did you talk to these guys?
No, that's not an accurate statement in there.
No, it's not. So this, sort of a surprise that this came up, and it's sort of in the 11th hour. I don't quite understand how we're going to handle this, to tell you the truth.
The communication formally to the county has strictly been through and with the Economic Development Company.
Right.
I have not spoken to these people.
And all we've known to date is that they're working on the EA grant. This is the first time I heard there was some issue that we got to make a change in plan.
Okay. Commissioner Prince?
Just want to comment on something you said, Bill. I absolutely remember our discussion about how can we do this without having sites picked out,
Right.
people on board who will lease their land. And I completely remember that, and I remember, if I remember correctly, and I may not, that discussion was the actual, where they had on the map where the 6 were, if they moved a little bit one way or another. One landowner said no, another one was possibly saying yes. And if I remember correctly, we thought that trying to get the land under contract or even start that negotiation was premature at that time, because we didn't know if DOLA was going to be willing to assist us in an EDA with the other half. So that's kind of how I remember it. And I remember this is an absolute critical part. We can have 6 towers, but if they sit in a yard because we have somewhere to erect them, I mean, we're wasting our time. I think the EDA is not really the 11th hour. I'm not sure I really buy off on that. I think the EDA came with a requirement that we weren't anticipating them to come with, but I'm not surprised that we got it. So we got that requirement. Now we're trying to see if we want to fulfill that or not.
We do.
So, I'm a little hesitant to say it's a last minute thing. I'm wondering if we, where we stand on this. And first of all, I'm not sure we can even approve a contract with just one company. We'd need to go out for bid. We would handle our business right. It's $11,000 that we'd be spending of somebody's money, our taxpayer money. It just seems to be kind of, I don't feel comfortable with this.
Well, we want to make sure whatever we bid on covers the requirement, and I'm not so sure it does.
I have no issue with EDA asking for this information. I mean, if I was going to kick in $1 million, I'd want to know what's going on too. I don't have a
We
problem with that.
sort of set that up front.
I want to share some information. This was from Trent Thompson, and then we will get to Ms. Christie, but I want to kind of set the stage. This was an email sent to Dale Mullen about the broadband infrastructure expansion project. And I'm not going to read it all, but they have underlined some things, and I want to at least cover those. In the application, which says to me that we really haven't submitted an application to the EDA in the final format because it wouldn't be talking about it. But in the application, it says, explain and provide the context of how this is a component of the larger project and provide any detailed information about the leases in an attachment. Here's what I think was interesting. As a note, I recommend not including any cost associated with the terms of the leases in the EDA grant request. Meaning if there are cost components to the leases, for example, the county must pay a rent, I strongly recommend the county pay those costs with funds not involved in the EDA grant or the match. I'm assuming the match here he's talking about would be DOLA. And so he goes on to make a couple of recommendations, 3 of them, and he said that number 2 was the ideal and most realistic. Provide letters of intent from each of the property owners that they are willing to negotiate a long-term lease agreement with the county based on these basic terms. Obviously, we have not been privy to those yet. So the overall goal is to allay as much risk as possible that this project would be in jeopardy because the private owners refuse to sign a lease. If you can provide item number 1, that would be awesome. If you can't, number 2 is doable. It should suffice, but at least you will need to provide number 3, and those were the requirements, that there's basic terms of the leases such as the length, the date, start dates, general left and right parameters for the leases, which I sure as hell don't understand what that means. Will they be cost or no cost based? What is the minimum duration of the leases? He's recommending 20 to 25 years. I recommend not signing any leases that are less than 21 years. If you can make a case that the tower's useful life is less than 20 years, let me know. So it says a couple things to me. It says, number 1, that the EDA does not have a final application. We've been led all along to believe that that was the case, so I'm not real thrilled about that. I spoke with Dale Mullen and Charles Bogle about this as late as last night. Both gentlemen said if you as commissioners aren't willing to spend $30,000 on a $2 million grant, you have no business being in the chairs that you're in. You have no idea about what the importance of this project is, and so on and so forth. Originally, Mr. Bogle approached me, as I think he did you, Commissioner Prince, at a $30,000 figure. Today, we see this bid from a single company for $11,250. Mr. Mullen indicated to me last night that if DOLA were to approve this request of X number of dollars, let's say it's $30,000, I don't know that figure exactly, that then DOLA's award would be $30,000 less than originally agreed upon, and then EDA's award would be $30,000 less than originally discussed. Because EDA is only going to match what DOLA puts up. My thinking was if DOLA were to release $30,000 now and award 990 whatever,
The difference.
then they've already contributed to 30, plus the balance still leaves DOLA's amount at $1 million, so why wouldn't EDA match that $1 million? I struggled with that a little bit, but Ms. Christie,
Yes, sir.
your perspective.
Okay. So I am not going to talk about the proposal that you have in front of you because it's not. You follow your own procurement
Yeah, this is
procedures.
just a
That's
bit.
your own. That's your own.
Just a bit.
So just as a reminder, yes, DOLA awarded the county $1 million. We've extended that award through March of 2020 to work through this EDA. requirements. So, and I spoke with Trent Thompson yesterday as well.
Oh,
So
good.
I did reach
Okay.
out to him so that I was fully aware of what's going on. So the short answer is, yes, we can pull X amount of dollars out of your $1 million award to meet EDA requirements. And I talked to Trent, when I talked to Trent yesterday, I tried to make sure that I understood kind of the levels and because they have a lot more preliminary, prerequisite, pre-this and everything than we do. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood it. So a pre-application had been submitted that had to go through a review process and make sure that it met the intent of EDA. During that review, it sounds like, Trent has come forward now with these other items that should be included in the final application, which I believe is going in tomorrow. I know that there's been some money spent up front already to meet EDA requirements, $40,000 centerline study. I think the money maybe came from the EDC because DOLA we didn't put any money in that, I don't think. So we can, yes, we can take $30,000 or whatever that dollar amount is out of the $1 million grant award and transfer it into a smaller award that wouldn't require a match by anybody and just get the work done that EDA is asking for. It sounds like after the application is submitted tomorrow, their reviews take about, 10 to 14 days, and then they determine if there's something else that's needed before they'll actually go under award. So when I talked to Trent, on our side as a grantor, it would be easier for us to only do this once, right? There's work that needs to be done, and we know exactly how much it's going to cost. It would be easier just to take care of it all at one time. I did ask Trent because I, too, was confused by the fact that if we're in for $1 million, then why aren't they in for $1 million if we take $30,000 off the top? And they take $30,000 off the top, then now we're short $60,000 for a project that's still going to cost $2 million. And he said that was their rule. If money was spent prior to them being under contract, that they couldn't count it as match. So I did confirm that with them
Well, that's some
because
clarification.
I was
Thank you.
under the assumption that you could still use it as, we would use it as match, but they apparently will not. So, the county has a couple options. As far as I see, this may not be how you all envision this, but that's why I'm here to discuss what you guys want to do. We can wait, right? No decisions get made, and the application gets submitted. EDA and their engineers review the information that's been submitted, identify where there are gaps for their application, which is their prerogative, to identify what they need before an application would be approved, and then have an accurate dollar amount to make a decision on to move forward. Then you can either decide DOLA takes it all out of their $1 million, has a separate grant. We're short with EDA for the construction and we figure that out later. Or if it's a feasible amount that the county would be in a position to split the cost with DOLA and have a brand new grant disregarding the initial $1 million that has already been awarded to keep that award whole so that you can keep your EDA request whole, that's another option. It's entirely up to you all which way you would want to go. We would not be in a position to fully fund all of the EDA requirements without another match and keep the $1 million whole. So those are kind of the two options of where we are right now.
And do you believe we need to keep that $1 million whole or not?
Well, I think so. The preliminary cost that we've seen shows that it's a $2 million project, right? So, if it was just a matter of our $30,000, but EDA'd still come in for everything, then maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But with EDA then cutting their award based on what our final large award would be, then that is what would concern me, chipping away at the $2 million, because it chips it double.
Just a quick question that brings up is, what if we keep chipping away at it and you keep paying it and then it doesn't get approved? What does DOLA do with the money you're out?
If it's not approved on the EDA
I
side.
don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We
For other
don't ask you
reasons.
to pay it back.
It's a
You're
risk
not
we
on
all
the-
Yeah, are we at risk?
You're not on the hook to
Yeah.
pay it back. Some things happen. I mean, of course, and that's why I think that having the financial partnership, moving this stuff forward is the best option.
So that brings up the same, another issue, sort of the same, is, so we go through that process, and landowners are tough to deal with sometimes, especially when they got something out their front window. If they cause us to have to move, it sounds like if we have to move those towers, does that require another frequency study or whatever, line of sight study? And if it did, could we be at risk of not meeting enough of the requirements because of that later on? And then how far along in construct? I know
Well, I
that
think
you
that's the
said in
point
the
of
past, if we
getting-
construct them and then we abandon, we have to abandon the towers. We still have to leave the towers up for a certain amount of time, for example.
So I think that the three options that EDA laid out to get the landowner approval or consent that's why they have that. They want to know that that's there before
Right.
they go under award or go under contract with anybody, which is why we're not under contract with you either,
Right.
right? I mean, you have an award from us, you have an award letter, but there are these stipulations.
Right.
You
We'll
get
start
the $1
spending
million,
if we can't
you
use
can't,
it, right.
right? So I think that's why that stipulation is there, because EDA isn't going to, go under contract without that.
So you mentioned the county maybe doing a 50-50 deal for the 60,000. Just off the wall, what would happen if the county wanted to loan their $30,000 to the project and then recoup it once the awards are given? Is that even a possibility?
We will not pay you back.
Don't do that. Okay, just want to know.
And we're really not talking 60,000, as
I
I
don't know what we're
understand it.
talking.
Right? I mean, I don't know,
I have no
we don't
idea.
really know that,
Yeah.
but
That's why we probably wouldn't.
I'm only going on the figure that EDC ran at me, and the initial thing was, and that conversation was obviously not really accurate, that we were gonna need 30,000, that we need the county to put up maybe 7,500, maybe 10,000, and we'll go to DOLA and see if we can get some money to cover this study. Well, in my thinking, and I'm not gonna argue with the EDA, that's way above my pay grade, but I'm almost certain it's on record. We all believed from day one that we should go to these landowners before we go all in with everybody else, because without them, what's the point? The EDC has indicated that if these initial 6 tower locations don't fly, then there was room in the engineering to move those, but nobody said how far, half a mile, quarter of a mile, 300 yards, whatever. I had a very pointed and somewhat contentious discussion last night with EDC,
East Economic
Economic
Development
Development Company,
CC.
that I said, I have a question, having lived here for a while, what would be the most effective approach in trying to get landowners to agree to go under at least a letter of intent? I was promptly informed that nobody locally has any business dealing in that realm, that was certainly a professional's job to come in here from somewhere else And so I said, well, you let me know how it goes when you start talking with this landowner, that landowner. And I named them with somebody from New Jersey or Oklahoma City and see how far they get trying to enter a 25-year lease. He said, that is really none, that's above your deal, don't worry about that. That's why we're gonna hire a professional.
Unbelievable.
I heard the same thing, Mr. Chairman, and I was flabbergasted, to be honest with you. When he said, just leave it to us, my answer is, yeah.
Well, that's what we did, and that's why we're here today.
I'm having a lot of angst about this, and I mentioned it to you. We had a conversation that technology is advancing very quickly, that anybody in the United States can get internet service through a satellite. I love DOLA. They help us in everything we do, but it's still our tax money. That's where it comes from. And I don't want to spend well, first of all, I don't want to spend county tax money, but I don't want to spend state tax money either. Use it on kids or whatever else. I'm just stating this. I'm going to go along with the program, but I'm having strong second thoughts when the people who are running this say to me, trust me, and I go, show me, and they go, trust me. I want to see it. When this thing about the locations came up, and Bill, I agree with you. I remember when Walt Disney bought the land in Florida, everything was super hush-hush. They bought a bunch of land because the minute people learned that Disney's coming to put in a theme park, well, you can imagine what happened to the prices. The people who own these properties, I mean, they're human beings. They're gonna, I would suspect, they say, hey, we just hit the big lottery jackpot. That's what I'm concerned about. And then I really want to know, and I have yet to get a decent answer, how many people are we really going to serve? I get it that they're going to increase the coverage of broadband to 80% in our county. I get it. And how many more people is that will get broadband? And I'm just venting right now because I'm concerned. And then I asked the question, how many people are eligible today for broadband in the towns and the areas where broadband is available? And what percentage of those people who are eligible for it actually bought it? I got no answer. And I've asked that question multiple times because I would extrapolate if it's 10% of the people out there. And then I'm thinking, okay, $2 million, how many people are going to get it? Are we willing to pay $50,000 a person or $75,000 or $100,000 a person to make it available to those people? Some of this is just lunacy to me.
Well, you brought up a good point.
I'm
We've heard the
worried about
statistic.
this.
We've got 30,000 empty lots that are still trying to be sold. That's part of the 80% coverage that nobody's in right now.
But I truly, in my heart, feel in the next 5 to 10 years,
30.
towers are going to be a total waste of money because it'll be like, I don't know, there'll be new technology, the satellite systems will be better, but you can get it today. If you want it today, you can get it. You can get it through a satellite. So
You are.
I have broadband in my house,
Yeah.
and I pay the price for it. That's a whole other
And,
issue.
well,
But I have
no,
a
you bring up a
straight
good
line of
issue
sight.
because
But I'm
in
worried
order,
about this
Jay,
I'm worried about this project all the way through.
in order for us to get our maintenance money, we have to have somebody renting the towers. And if they have to compete with those satellite prices. Think about it.
And if we own the towers, we're obligated to pay for the next 25 years the leases on these sites.
That's right.
And here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, Musk, or some very rich, independent, brilliant thinker figures out how to do this so that I don't need towers. That's too expensive. We're going to beam it off my Tesla flying around in space or whatever.
That's what
what I'm
he's
saying.
doing.
But my point is, technology is rapidly advancing, and I'm thinking about the number of people who are going to benefit from this versus the cost. when these people move, I mean, I made this comment last night at the strategic plan meeting. You know, we live here for a reason, and if people want to live out in the middle of
They know what they're buying.
nowhere, I mean, if they need broadband, the first question they ought to ask before they buy their property is broadband available? If they care enough, that may not be the right property if it's not available. If it is available, great. And I'm sorry to just ramble on right now, but I'm just bringing up, in my mind, I'm having second thought.
Well, that's right. And
I'm worried about this
That's
project.
right. Here's something else we haven't talked about.
I'm really glad you're here to hear me ramble because I'm worried about this. I don't want you to I want your $1 million to make this a better building. Thank you, you did. But on something else in the county. I want you to help us. You know what I'm saying? And I'll shut up.
Jay, there's
I'm
something
on
else
a
that she
roll.
could help us on that's in the works
She helps us on
already.
everything. They're wonderful.
The justice.
No, not only that, it's there is a broadband effort going on in our effort to get the phone lines in here. And CenturyTel is working broadband already that who knows how that's going to fall out. I mean, it adds to the case you just made about other things going on to get
Cell phones
coverage
are
of it.
life and death.
I'm not talking cell phone.
Right.
I'm talking a fiber optic
You're
cable.
putting these towers up and saying, well, maybe the cell phones will hook up to them. How many contracts do we have? Have you heard a single? I asked the question, who have you spoken? Oh, we spoke to this guy, this. And what did they say? I said, well, come tell us when the towers are up. But they're saying it's the same thing. There's going to be a better technology by then. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
Thank you, sir. I'll take a quick question.
Do you even
Shut up,
have
or-
commitments from Seacom and Hillside, whoever they are,
Economic
providers?
Development Company indicates they have letters of intent from those companies.
They-
I have not seen those. I spoke or sat down, had lunch with the CEO of Seacom.
He denied it.
And
Don't-
how many times is
I saw the letter
CCEDC gonna
that
do
CCOM
this?
wrote, and it's not a commitment letter. It's say, if you get it, we'll consider it.
That's what it was.
So, yes, sir.
Remember?
I reserved with a little follow-up question as well, if I might, too. But does this fund all 6 towers?
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir.
Does
Want to know
fund,
if it funded all 6 towers?
how many of them are on public land?
None.
None are on public land.
The proposed locations are not on public land, they're on private land. So,
And right now, you have no commitments
No.
from the landowners?
haven't even...
They don't even know,
haven't
we don't
gotten
even
to
know
that.
where they're actually, who owns what.
We have a map that
We have
shows
the
where
map,
they
we
want
have the
it.
map, but we don't know who's.
And
Well,
we know
the
who
other
owns
consideration
where they
is-
say they want it, but no one has
Right.
confronted that.
So my follow-up question is, the only other consideration is that not only the people that you're putting the tower on, but how do their neighbors feel about the tower
Yes.
as well?
Yeah.
When we put the tower on Verdamont, we made commitments to the landowners around there to not open that up for other commercial enterprise to use that tower, because they didn't want it to be any bigger or any more garish than it was. So if you have to make those kinds of commitments, then recouping the investment from other cell companies may not be a possibility.
That's exactly right.
Well, a couple of perspectives. I would not relish the idea of sitting in that chair listening to this conversation, although this conversation was had over a year ago.
Exactly.
I would, if I was DOLA, I would probably be a little concerned about the buy-in and so on and so forth. It just seemed to me, number one, that we have allowed ourselves to be painted into a political corner now, that if these 3 commissioners stand in the way of receiving $2 million in grants that people have worked for several years to bring to fruition, then now we become the target of a lot of angst, probably anger, hate, and discontent. I get that. I think we probably allowed that to happen to some degree by going along when we did not have the answers that we asked for and never did get. I think we were smart enough to bring up those concerns early on.
Not only did we
Never
bring them
just-
up, Tom, we qualified it. If we had to spend another dime on it, we're not going to do it. If it hits into the county where the business case doesn't support the
Right.
utility of carrying it through and providing that service. What we can do when lose the users go off and the CCON can't make a business case to keep on the darn thing. What do we do?
Well,
You got
I
a
think
lease, you
that's-
gotta pay for it.
That's part of the risk assessment with a public-private partnership. You just have to go in knowing that there's a lot of things that could happen. I really believe from day one that the grants were going to take care of this project to the point of service. They were going to buy the land, the grant money was going to buy the land, buy the towers, put in the installation, put all the peripheral equipment in, pay for the right-of-ways, all of that. That's what I truly believed initially, that the grants were going to pay for that.
That's what they said.
Certainly EDA is not talking like that now. Do you have a sense, Christie, about what that money was going to be used for? Was there ever any conversation that you can remember about, well, we shouldn't be buying the ground, it should be leased, or?
I don't recall those, it has been years
Yeah.
of planning
Yeah.
and work on this.
Yeah.
You won't be getting my hate and discontent if you
Okay.
all have to decide what you want to do, so, which I've been saying. It is in our grant that you can use grant money to purchase property and, install the roads or whatever work that needs to be done to get to the tower. So, I mean, on our side, those are all eligible expenses.
Right.
That's what you can use the money for. So it seems like it's this preliminary work that EDA is requesting that's causing,
Yeah.
Some.
Which I don't think anybody could have foresaw that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what those conversations were, and
Right.
I wasn't part of the EDA conversations.
Go ahead.
A comment on the other side. I have been, and I know three of us have, been inundated by our constituency who has strongly voiced the opinion they want broadband. So, I mean, I want to do what the people who put me in office want. So that's just the other side to this. I wonder if they really understand the people who say, oh, broadband, I can't wait to get it. Don't realize it's probably available, most of those people, it's available to them right now. They just have chosen not to avail themselves of it. So, but I want to do what the people want, but I don't want to squander any money that we don't have to. That's what I'm concerned about.
Mr. Bogle said to me last night, if you guys do not approve this transaction with DOLA, you will be stabbing this project in the heart with a knife, and it will go away, and it will be on your shoulders.
I heard that too.
I don't know that I buy that 100% with respect to what you said about maybe we go back to EDA, have them go back to EDA and say, give us all your requirements, let's deal with it all at once. Because we're not going to keep coming back. That's my frustration, is we keep coming back to this. We need more, we need this, or we need that. I get the EDA doesn't want to give $1 million without having all their requirements met. Well, tell us your requirements and let's meet them once and for all.
Yeah, I like that idea better. If we're going to still sit and watch, we can't piecemeal.
I certainly don't want to go back, go to DOLA, get 30 grand, and then a month later, now we need another 12,000. At some point, if I were DOLA, I'd say, why don't you guys start spending some money? Quit asking me for money. We've already told you we'll give you some. But that came with some strings. It was supposed to be EDA's done, then we get our money from DOLA. And now we're kind of going around the back door, and I'm not real comfortable with that either. I know you said you would be willing to do that, to consider that from DOLA's perspective, and I appreciate that. But I don't like doing business that way. I don't like doing business like this. I just think we were never given the information that we needed to make a wise, sound decision on behalf of the county. And now here we are again. I don't know that this is a wise, sound decision to consider some bid from a company that obviously EDA has talked to, or Economic Development Company has talked to, but we certainly have not. So I don't know. I just don't want you, Christie, to go away from here going, what in the world are we involved in here? This is such a cluster. These people have no idea where they're going, no idea what they want to do. They're not committed to the project. They don't believe in it. They don't trust. I mean, I could see DOLA having those thoughts.
Well, there will come a day when we have to decide what we're doing with $1 million, because it can go back. It was funded out of the broadband initiative. And there are broadband projects that are in the state that are ready to go with support from all sides. So, you know, there will come a point where that decision needs to be made by this board. Now, what milestones or markers you set for yourselves to make those decisions, that's something that I'm happy to work through with you if that's what you want. If you all have a feeling that you know where you want to go, then that's also your decision. We're here to support local priorities. So.
And I try to look at both sides of this thing. From the economic development company's side of the coin, I'm sure they didn't realize EDA was going to make a run at them with these 3.
I think that is part of it. And that's why I called Trent yesterday for funder-to-funder conversation of what is it that you all are looking for? When is it that you can make a decision so that everybody knows what the plan is? Because we can't keep nickel and diming a project to get it started.
Right.
And so that's why I called him yesterday.
Okay.
So
I don't know what the commission wants to do. My thoughts are that...
Some questions.
Go ahead, sir.
Just that's the best discussion I've heard on this thing. I don't see how you can even make any kind of decision. You get a whole can of worms there. You don't know any answers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think there are questions that we still need to have answered. I think this bid from this SSC was an attempt to satisfy EDA's request of, we need these letter of intents before we're going to cough up this $1 million. And I suspect this was a plan that the EDC said, okay, let's go find a company that could do that. Let's get them under contract, hire them, and we'll try to get these 6 properties under contract, or at least under an LOI. Okay, I kind of get that. It's way late in the ball game for me personally. I wouldn't do that business that way. I'd have gone to these landowners, because without them, you have nothing. So get your landowners. Okay, yeah, if you can get the money, yeah, we'll be sure to sell you the land. Okay, that makes sense to me. My gut reaction is that if we go down this road, it better have an end to it. It better have a gate at the end and say, if your people cannot within an X time frame, this SSC or whatever company, you can't bring these landowners under a letter of intent, then not only EDA is probably going to pull it, then I would say maybe we've gone down this road long enough. And then I'll take my lumps at turning my back on $1 million from DOA. I don't feel near as comfortable with the EDA million. I mean, I always believed that DOLA would probably support this project. To what level, I have no idea. Pleasantly surprised at $1 million level, but I don't feel real confident with EDA's deal, because we just keep this, we keep that. Bogle and Company sat in a meeting and said you will have an answer from EDA by July of 2018. And here we are.
Yeah, I'm getting angry just thinking about it, guys. I am, because I'm going to tell you something else. I don't know for sure. We brought all this up, and we got the same arrogant response from the CCEDC, whatever they're called, that don't worry, we know more than you do, and you don't have the pay grade to make that decision on your own. There's also a point in this that people are forgetting. They're going to come back to you and ask for more money. You know why? Because once it's in, we get our ring of towers in, we can't connect them to any fiber link. They're going to put a temporary fix in and put a wireless hit on those towers, and it's not going to supply the requirement they said they were going to do until we bring a fiber optic link up from Texas Creek or from Walsenburg, is what they've always said. And in the meantime, things have changed. They're bringing fiber in for other reasons. There's things that can change things. Jay pointed out the satellites. We pointed out what Elon Musk is doing with 4,000 satellites today. So this just makes me upset to think that we weren't smart enough to think of these. We were. We thought of them. We talked about them.
So they can't come to us, just to be clear. EDC is not a grant.
I know.
I just
I
wanna make
understand
sure
the process. They're going to come to us, and we're going to say, Christy, help us. We got to connect.
Chairman, can I suggest that we've kind of vented some frustrations that we all have? Can we set up a workshop, get Economic Development Corporation to sit in front of us, and let's get answers, if they'll give them, if they have them, and let's, the three of us, come up with a game plan that we feel is best for this county.
We
But
can do that in the
I am
meantime.
not ready to answer that
Same
question
here.
today. I would like to get them back in front of us. And I don't want to hear the walk around, well, trust me, that kind of stuff we've heard so many times. I want answers. And maybe I can get with them and give them questions ahead of time of what they'll bring to the table.
Well, can I ask a question,
Sure,
Jay?
of
I
course.
think that's fine.
Of course.
In the meantime, Christie brought up a good point, and that is, and Tom just touched on it. We still want them to give us the whole picture, even to have a workshop. We ought to get what EDA is going to want to request.
Therein
If there's
lies-
other issues.
That's the
That-
bottom line to
Yeah.
us.
So if we got that and we had a workshop based on the whole picture, I don't want to piecemeal this and say, oh, let's approve this, and then find out we got to have another workshop because there's something else.
I mean,
We got time because we bought a year's worth of time with Bill.
With us, but not with EDA.
Right.
Yeah, what's their got
So
timeline?
they're, according to Trent, the reason that he wants to get all of it in is to have, they have the money in this fiscal year and he wants to have it set
yeah, sure.
aside for
Well, yeah, we've got
the
until
project.
September, right?
And then, the money could go away. So his push is to get the money at least, set aside for the Custer County project so that all of the other work can get done to go under contract, because his concern is that it won't be there in the future with the next federal budget. You can do with that what you want to.
Okay. Commissioner Prince, I have a suggestion concerning your remarks about having a workshop. And I know you two will probably take this gavel to me, and that's fine. I personally do not want to deal with this in a workshop. I want to sit in a Board of County Commissioners meeting and have this conversation.
and I have, workshops are always open to the public, and I'm fine with that as long as I would suggest that it's a special meeting open to the public, of course, which it always is. But I don't want to feel constrained, like I'm thinking we have a long agenda today. We obviously have angst about this particular suggestion, and that's why I was saying, let's move it to a time where we can devote 2-3 hours to just this topic. That's what I'm suggesting, sir.
Okay?
And I'm going to give you gavel
Thank
back.
you. Very kind.
If you're going to do that, may I suggest that it be recorded? You know, Jay, you mentioned that a lot of your constituents
No issue.
have talked about they want broadband. Well, there are an equal number of constituents that want no part of this deal and have said it from the beginning and who are not going to be surprised that suddenly there's another need for money, and if you guys don't do it, you're just horrible meanies. So the public is interested in this, and it ought to be officially recorded.
I agree.
I mean, I'll record it anyway, but still.
Well, then we would do it as a commissioner meeting in our commissioner room, and we'll put the live streaming on it. And I'm fine with that, and advertise it that people can come, and we need to move it somewhere, larger venue, I'm fine with that. And it's not what Jay, I don't care what I want.
No, I know,
care what-
lots of constituents on both sides of this
I
thing.
agree.
And things have changed over the last year.
Ms. Christie, do you get a sense of timing here, other than what you just indicated about EDA? Did Trent talk to you about, well, we need this by the end of the week, we need to get started by
The
summer?
application's supposed to be submitted tomorrow for it to be reviewed in the March review cycle. Right. But that doesn't include having this work done. It includes having the plan to get the work done so the EDA's engineer can review it. So it sounds like they accept applications once a month, so.
Problem submitting the
Yeah.
application, that's what they say, but I agree. find out what it is they want.
Another question from the sheriff.
You'll have to forgive me, I don't recall it's SD.
SSC.
SSC.
It's just a bid.
So it's $11,000, and forgive me, I'm public school educated, so you may have to repeat this here.
Stop it.
So my understanding is that contract is basically to pay this
SSC.
SSC company to go out and speak to landowners about the possibilities of leasing or purchasing land for these towers. So I've only lived in this county for about 20 years, so I'm still a new guy here, but so I'm to assume now that most of these properties are going to be a bigger chunks of ground. I'm going to assume with some landowners that probably have been around for quite a while, ranchers or bigger tracts of ground. And so now you're going to have somebody that they've never met in their lives, never talked to in their lives, and their loafers and their tie going to come out and approach them about leasing some ground from them. Why are we spending close to $12,000 on something when, quite frankly, wouldn't a local person that has some ties to the community have a little better rapport with these folks going out and saying, listen, we've got this project, and
So it sounds like it's an EDA requirement that it's a third-party firm.
Solves that
there
question.
you go.
Well, and are there not zoning issues to be considered
You'd have to
have
for
hearings.
subdividing and neighbors coming in and having their say? Ugh. I think they talked about a subdivision.
So we being asked to approve this today. What?
Not this. This really doesn't have anything to do with what they were asking. They were asking us today to agree to go to DOLA and formally request the release of some funds to move forward with meeting the EDA requirement, that they get some letters of intent.
I move that we authorize Economic Development Corporation that we, let me rephrase that. I move that we ask DOLA to release $30,000 from the $1 million grant that was awarded to allow us to meet the EDA requirements.
Is there a second? I will second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to request DOLA to release up to $30,000 to meet this newest request from EDA. Discussion.
So I would object, I don't mind pursuing what it is, but I still want to know if $30,000 is not going to cover it, or it is. I like the idea of submitting the application and getting the process going on. They don't apparently need the results of this in order to submit the application, so why are we giving them, requesting it now?
I think so that they can put in this application that that money has been earmarked so that process can occur.
Is that right, Chris? Is that how that works? Or can they submit it as is?
It's my understanding they can submit it as is.
That's right.
It's my
So
understanding.
I think we're jumping the gun.
I've been sitting here thinking I'm not going to say this because it's probably not relevant.
But here it comes.
Okay, go ahead, Tom. Say it.
One of my dad's well-used phrases was, "It is hard to quit drinking out of a spittoon." That once you tip it up and you start, it is tough.
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
You can't bite it off.
And that's really how I feel. I mean, I just, and I will sit here and tell you, there's a political ramification to this. If anybody denies that, I'd say they're not very politically astute. Because nobody's threatened me, but nobody has not taken the opportunity to say there's no way you're going to stand in the way of $2 million grant.
We're not standing in the way
And-
by getting the data. I agree if we said, let's quit, have a motion to just drop it, that would be a different story.
I seconded this motion once, so we could have this discussion
That's
too,
right.
so that I would have the opportunity to say on record that this is probably the end of me drinking out of this spittoon. I will set it down. If they come back and say, we just need another $8,000, you're gonna have to get those votes from somebody besides this chair, because I won't have
Talk
it.
about a water fountain and not a spittoon.
You've already said that, Tom.
I know.
So.
That's why I said, if
so
you don't
say-
think this is political, you're
Well,
crazy.
but you guys have all agreed not to spend any more money on this project from the county coffers.
That's true. And
right.
And-
therein
but-
lies the problem. This
So
is
now you
not.
say, well, okay, this time, but not again. Of course, and this isn't from the county coffers.
you.
Except that down the road,
Ah, well.
if we're $30,000
We're
short,
spending the money.
where's
We're
that
gonna-
money gonna come
Have to
from?
cough it up.
And to your point, because I, believe me, have had that thrown in my face, that this is not county money, you're asking for an advance from a grant. And that is true. We're not taking this money out of county coffers. So I won't have that put on me by anyone. Do I like it? No, I don't like it. I think that's pretty obvious. But if somebody said to me, you said you weren't going to spend county money, I will say to them, I did not spend county money. I did not vote to spend county money.
And,
If we do that, then I will take those shots.
okay, and so here's, I said the same thing, but from your taking perspective, it's the grant. Okay, it's the grant. We go through with it, and at the end, we're $30,000 short, and they're gonna look at you and say, you're gonna spend county money or not?
And
And we're gonna say, no.
we'll see what we say.
Well, see, the point is, when do you draw the line? It's a red line in the sand and we keep moving. So we haven't said we're not gonna spend anything. If we get the data from, to tell them to go ahead and submit the application, I don't get it. If it still requires more money, then we can go make that decision on whether to pre-spend $50,000, if that's what it comes back to.
Mr. Prince?
I have never said I will never spend county money on this project or any other project. I have to see the utility in it for our constituency to see if it's something that is worthwhile or not.
Right.
They've elected me and put me in this chair to help them do that, and that's what I plan on doing. So I will not cut off the bank funds to anything at any time without having facts in front of me. But therein lies the issue. I want facts in front of me. I made the motion because it needs to move forward to a point where DOLA may agree to give us the $30,000. We may say, thank you very much, let's give it to a county that really wants it or needs it. We may, but we need to have this discussion with our experts. I mentioned to Tom a couple days ago, maybe we need to get an independent, hire an independent consultant, and I think the county should pay, if we agree to do that, would pay for that, to come in and say to us, here's the answer to the question you're not getting. This is how many additional people will be served. Here's the projection of that for the next 10 years. Here's what the cost will be. I need numbers. I need to know, what are we talking about here? And maybe we need to have an independent come in and tell us that it's something that needs to be done or not. So I made the motion because I feel we need this project to continue to move forward at this point. I am certainly in no position to kill this project. And it may be a wonderful project. It may be exactly what we need to do. But I'm just not totally convinced.
Well, I'm not convinced we're asked to kill the project right now. This motion is gonna kill it.
If we don't meet the EDA requirements, the project is dead. I heard that directly from Mr. Vogel's mouth.
Is that what it is, Christie?
Well, if we don't meet EDA's requirements,
Well,
they're not going to
well-
fund us, right?
Eventually,
Yeah.
Yeah,
today.
but we don't know what their
No,
requirements are.
I don't know that that's a result today, but
Right.
eventually, if we
Eventually.
can't meet their requirements, then they're going to pull that, and then the project does die.
So how do
Just
we
like
get
we,
all the
if we couldn't meet your requirements, the project would have died.
Absolutely correct.
So,
As it should.
So are you getting the sense from talking to Trent that he has had this before he'll submit it, or it's?
No.
Or, no.
We can submit.
There are other requirements he's gonna have that we're gonna have to answer, right?
I think we killed this. I think we all have our concerns about this. I think what we ought to do is vote on the motion, one way or another, and then let's get these questions open. And I completely concur with our reporter.
Jackie.
I'm sorry. Jack, I love you. You know that. My mind is just out in left field. Ms. Bubis, I absolutely agree. This needs to be fully in the public. And let's see what they say. And, you know, go from wherever we go. I have concerns. And I've voiced them.
Just, is it a public discussion in the middle of your motion too?
No. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this first came up a few years back, and every time we asked for more information, and we didn't get it, or it came in piecemeal or whatever, and it didn't go any farther. And that's a very astute comment that you made about the politics. The water is coming up in the barrel and you're standing in it and you see a hole in the side of it that might save your life, but the water's got to get up to it. I mean, they've put you in this position where whenever you make a decision to say no, you're going to look worse as time goes on. They've just put you in that position. To have these kinds of discussions in front of Christie, if it wasn't Christie, I would feel uncomfortable having the discussions in front of Dolan. She understands Custer County, she understands how the sausage is made, and I think she's very fair about, you know, the message that she gets from all of this. The discussion is healthy. I think at some point this discussion is going to come to the public. I think you would be very disappointed if this part of the discussion came out during the public hearings on whether to have a tower in my front yard or not. I don't really think it would not be appropriate, I don't think, to get that far with it, because if we're going to keep chipping away at this $1 million, at some point it comes out in the other end. Right. They're not going to have enough to fund the project, and then they're going to say, well, you're standing in the way of the project. We've spent $700,000. The county's got to come up with $300 to finish it. I think that's something to really be careful about. One study after another study. I think some of the questions that you've asked have been answered in some of the other studies. But maybe the money hasn't gotten to, or that information didn't get to you out of that.
That's the problem. They will not.
So,
if they have them, they won't share them.
Yeah, for it to be adversarial within our county community and county organizations, all of this discussion at the strategic plan was communication, and I don't think they've communicated. That's my gut feeling about it. There's risk in either way that you go, in my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's where I sit. I've watched it in the beginning and it didn't get this far, and now, you know, kind of, you're stuck. I sympathize with your position.
Further public comment? Part of me wants to support this idea of asking DOLA for this money. I think this 30,000, which was your motion, obviously, I don't want to put a lot of stock into this bid that they gave us, other than I think I gave them a dollar amount to look at. If this motion were to carry, I would just be hard pressed to go down this road again. I know Commissioner Canada feels like we shouldn't be going down this road at all. I understand that. We can certainly tell the Economic Development Company, submit your application without this. Obviously, Trent told them this is what they needed to move forward. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before a penny gets spent from this county, we have to approve it. So I don't have a problem asking Dolan to authorize, advance the 30,000, and then we will have the option to spend it or not when the time comes. We will be the ones who authorize the spending of this. So I don't think, I love you, asking DOLA to come in and help us with money at this point, or make it available to us if needed. we're not committed to it. It's just going to be available to us if this is a necessary evil, and I don't even mean necessary to get this project done.
Jay, I hear you, and that makes sense. Where I am on is, if they come back and ask for another chunk, I would rather have them, I don't think they're going to cancel moving forward with what they're going to have to. This is only one piece maybe. I don't know. We don't know what the requirements are. I would rather make the decision to authorize spending the advance, knowing the whole amount we're going to ask for the advance for. Because it could not, otherwise we're in the same shape. They're going to say, wait a minute, you already authorized this. If you stop now, it'd be stupid.
And I get that, Bill. My concern is we're all in uncharted territory. We don't know what they're going to want. So I think the suggestion of let's get it, let's find out, tell us everything you need, and then we have facts on the table we can decide what to do with. So the piecemeal is the worst. That is absolutely the worst. I think we all agree with it. Oh, now we need 30 for this. The next thing you know, we're going to need 20 for this. We're going to need 100 for this. The next thing you know, there's going to be $1 million gone and we have nothing. Okay, I get that. But if this is what it's going to take to get a bottom line, that's what we need.
The last question I have.
Yes.
Shut up. When did Trent when did Charles Bogle understand they needed this information? Was it
February 12th.
February the 12th? And here we are, got our back walked up against the wall. We could have had this discussion, and now we're faced with Trent's got to put it in tomorrow. Give me a break.
Well, EDC's got to submit.
That's what I
tomorrow. I want to say this to you guys, because you're the ones that came down here, sit in these chairs. I hope you don't think this is all just a bunch of political posturing. We haven't had these discussions. These guys didn't see this until today. I didn't see this bid till last night. I'm not afraid to say there are times I don't know what to do. This is one of those. People say, just do what you think's right in your heart and you'll be fine. And that's pretty good advice from constituents to a commissioner. But that doesn't mean I always got a firm grasp on what's in my heart. I've got some feelings about this, as I know Jay and Bill do as well. I'll support this motion today, but boy, it is biting my tongue to do that. I'm hoping that 30,000 is enough. I will not vote to go back to NOLA. I will say that today. And it doesn't matter whether EDC's here or not. I would say that if they were sitting in those 3 chairs right there. I'm not going to do this again. But I don't also want to be knee-jerky to stand in the way of EDAs moving forward. I don't think EDC knew EDA was going to come at them with all this other stuff. I don't know that, but I don't think they did. This email is dated February the 12th.
Yeah, how come they're not?
Further public comment?
Yeah, why aren't they here?
One is in Denver, one is in Texas.
Oh, well, that's nice.
They told me that last week. They said they would not be able to be here, and they gave me this document last night.
But they've known since February 12th.
This letter was addressed to Dale Mullen and dated, or this email was dated February 12th from Trent Thompson, yes. I can tell you when I received it if you're interested in proof.
This is dangerous.
You talked to Bogle at some time, but it hasn't been too long.
I pulled that document out of my email, so it'd take me a minute. But
That's
let
right,
me
don't
just-
worry about it.
Whether we like the timing or not, I get that. I'm not sure that March 11th, I communicated with Charles, so it was prior to that I received the email that had that attachment to it. But I said, after reading the doc, I wonder if it would be prudent to start writing a boilerplate standard lease that we can start with our potential landowners. I don't see anything about another engineering study, and I certainly hope we can proceed without any more studies and the related expenses. His response was, on March 11th, our intent is to hire a company that specializes in such lease efforts. We would assume that they would use such as a starting point.
So it took him several weeks to reply.
Further discussion, gentlemen? Yes, ma'am, public comment.
Just a question. Is there a set policy for notification, consultation, and decision-making for outside entities to work with you? Do you
No.
have a policy on the amount of time? And if you don't, would that be valuable? It seems like this harkens back to Upper Ark, and there seems to be a strategy of only coming to the commissioner after
Too late to
commissioners
make
after
anything but
decisions
what
are
they
already
want.
made. That seems completely inappropriate.
Points noted, thank you.
Yeah, the only thing, I don't believe turning this down right now and asking for the rest to have them submitted and let's find out what other hurdles EDA has is going to stop this. And I'm not worried about, and I have a lot of constituents that beat on me, and I understand both sides, the yes and no on this, and I'm comfortable with asking Christie to talk to Trent and get us the rest of the story before we commit money. I mean,
Well, I'm not sure that's Christie's responsibility. Maybe it is. I
she's
don't know.
dealing with Trent.
Like she spoke to him, but
I think everybody will know the story from EDA once the application's submitted. I think that's your timing for you all to talk to EDA. If you want an EDA DOLA County EDC meeting to lay it out once the application's been submitted and reviewed by EDA and their final recommendation has been determined, that may be the most appropriate time for everyone to come together to understand what all of the
What we have to do.
what needs to be done to take the next step.
And then thank you, for transparency, March 8th, Dale Mullins sent me an email that said, attached is the message from Trent Thompson detailing the various options we could develop to satisfy the EDA requirements to process our grant request. We chose to pursue option 2, realizing that this option would be less expensive and quicker to obtain. To date, we have received 2 different estimates that represent a cost of $15,000. I had said 30, but that's what Charles told me initially. I think he said the same thing to you roughly, didn't he? 25?
Originally, he told me 20. The reason I made the motion at 30 is because this morning you were saying that he wanted 30.
Yeah, and that was a verbal conversation I had with him.
Call the question.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of requesting a $30,000 advance on the $1 million grant from DOLA, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Motion fails. I will communicate as they requested me to today. I will let them know what our decision was. Thank you very much for coming down here. We appreciate that.
You know what you need.
So I think that the prudent thing here is to say that the majority of the vote was to not do this, obviously, thinking that EDC needs to turn in their application, find out what else is going to be required, and then we move forward.
That's wise.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to do this at a board of commissioners meeting then?
I will notify them today via an email that the commissioners voted not
Thanks,
to
Christie.
request. And then anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure.
No, and then anything else subsequent to that would be dealt with in a board meeting, and probably, I think your recommendation to ask Trent or one of his people to get together. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I mean, we put all of our eggs into the basket of the EDC.
You're next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, you're next on the agenda. Would you mind if we take about a 3-minute break?
That's a good idea to me.
Without objection, we're in recess. Meeting will come back to order. Next item of business is a discussion with Mr. Kit and Mr. Dave pertaining to use of the county water tenders for the Wet Mountain Fire Department. The floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, madam. I'm going to keep this very simple and straightforward. I'm here today to request the utilization of one of your tenders, one of your road and bridge tenders for approximately 8 weeks, 2 months, while we are able to acquire 2 tenders.
Please, have a seat.
Oh, that's not right.
Oh,
No, I'm good, I'm
sit
good.
on that
Actually, I'm good. You're okay, because I don't want to sit on that. But,
don't sit on that.
no. It's like a truth device. But that's basically it. I'm sure you probably have a lot of the background. I won't go into it in great detail. You've had other issues that are much more important, but that's the basic request. And this has been driven with careful thought and is based on an ISO request that we received about 4 weeks ago on the very last day of our 9-month-long assessment. And when this gentleman told me what it was basically in for the fire district and therefore the taxpayers, I said, somehow we're going to get these 2 pieces of apparatus in place within a reasonable amount of time until we can get our funding, and our feet on the ground and acquire, which is not all that easy to find a couple of tanker tenders, we call them tenders, to resolve this issue. Do you have any questions?
The 8 weeks, when would that start?
Just as yes, sir, yeah, just yes.
I move that, let me make a comment first, then I'll make a motion.
Sure.
We did talk to Road and Bridge, Gary Hyde.
Sure.
He said that this should not impact his business during an 8-week period.
Correct.
Because it's such a short period of time. And as a result, I move that we authorize allocating a tender for the Wet Mountain Fire Department to have for an 8-week period starting tomorrow.
I'll
As
second.
soon as it
Moved and seconded to authorize Road and Bridge to, let me rephrase that. Sorry. It's been moved and seconded to allow the county to share a water tender with the fire department for an 8-week period discussion. I talked to Gary yesterday and I asked him about this time frame, what he would be comfortable with. He agreed. I said, well, can you give me a date? And he said, I don't have a problem with going out to May 24th.
Fine.
So I
That's
think
fine.
that's 8 weeks from now, basically.
Fine.
And then he indicated, and I'm sure you gentlemen are aware of this, that the idea was to bring a water truck up from Wetmore and take one of the new water trucks down to Wetmore.
Understood.
Is that?
That works.
Yeah.
Sure.
There was some discussion with Gary at our last meeting about maybe having to cut off some of the smokestack to get it in that building at Boneyard. And we were talking about going to Boneyard, is that correct?
And if that's the case, and Boneyard is the choice, which we're good with, it won't have to be modified at all.
Okay.
The Rosita station's only a 10-foot door.
Yeah. Gary indicated to me that this truck was going to Boneyard. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No,
but
that's
I'm just
perfectly
asking.
good.
Okay.
That's perfect.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
It has to go to Boneyard. If not, I retract and I recuse myself. Because I'm within your 5-mile area. If you were at the Rosita station and I didn't want to act for a personal reason,
Understood.
so I was going to recuse myself. I was under the impression it was Boneyard.
Yeah, that was the assumption I was going on, but I thought we better ask.
No.
Boneyard's tall enough not to whack the stack.
Yes, it's a
And
12-foot
so-
door. 12-foot door.
And that's why I asked you if you had any documentation. So
No.
I'm assuming an IGA would be forthcoming from the fire department. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
If we might ask, you have the world's foremost IGA expert sitting at the table with you up there.
Oh,
Would,
I mean, Oh, you mean all the way down
I
there?
mean, all the way down. The guy on the end that actually runs the show, one on the end there with the brown vest on. Could we avail of ourselves of his expertise in that? He and I have worked on a couple of IGAs together that are similar to this, and I think that would save you guys having to have review if he's willing to do that.
He used to find work for me when he was a commissioner, now he's still doing it.
A couple of concerns have been voiced. I voiced one of them. Was not in favor of sending a new water truck, but I don't have a problem with swapping one out for Wetmore. Secondly, Gary believes, as do I, that in the event, which I think is pretty unlikely, but that truck had to be driven, it would have to be by a county employee.
Understood.
Is that reasonable?
Not a problem.
Other than that, I'm assuming that truck would remain full the whole time it's there.
That's correct. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been working towards is we've also supplied some of your drivers with the proper PPE to work in forest fires. And they're all going to attend our training for the wildland fire situation. So
Yeah, they are.
there's a lot more quid pro quo going on back and forth to try and get it.
Correct. Yeah.
Cooperative too, so.
But this is to satisfy their need to feel comfortable with our ability to roll water to scene on a structural fire. They're all about structure.
And that
So,
was another point that I wanted to get to. Thank
Yeah.
you for doing that. These are pertaining to structure fires.
That's correct.
It's not really designed for wildlife fires.
No, that's correct.
That's why
Unless
the
they set up a
ISO
water resource base
Right.
within, that's safe for the vehicle. You know, they're not four-wheel drive. We understand that.
Yeah, they're not
Also,
to be used off-road
Right.
in our position.
yeah.
Only question I have is, if the reason you're doing this is because you don't have the resources and you're gonna get something later.
And we had a truck meeting last night. Yes, sir.
Okay, the fire season gets hotter after the 8 weeks is over, so what are you gonna do?
Well, by then,
Get it in time.
we're tracking a number of trucks, 2 trucks up north, and one as close as Canyon City. Canyon Fire just put one on the market, or I say market,
that right?
on the auction block.
You got sources.
Oh, yes, we do.
4,000 gallon.
No, 3,000 is really what we need to meet, but it seems that everything is 4, but that's okay.
Yeah, I thought that Canyon one was a 4,000.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question,
Go ahead.
you said about swapping one out from Wetmore, taking up there?
Yeah, we've got an older water truck down here. Road and Bridge has an older water truck down here in Wetmore. We would bring one of our new water trucks down here for the next 8 weeks, leave it at Wetmore, take the old one up and put it in the boneyard fire. You call that a firehouse? What do you call the boneyard?
Substation.
Substation, thank you.
Satellite substation.
Yeah, okay. Seemed like there was something there. Oh, please. I asked Terry if she could give us the figures about the number of people this would impact, and I
Sure, I have that.
we brought that down. So
In
we
the
want to share that.
the Boneyard Park, it affects 405 residential parcels. The Rosita area impacts, I guess, 935 plus residential parcels. So it's significant, you know.
Yeah, I know Vernon asked us to bring that map down. If you
Yeah.
want to share that information with us, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah. These are our current, I call them crop circles, and they're rough idea. That's a 5 road mile radius to each of these satellite stations. That's the main. This is our new and as yet unmarked Blizzardine or airport substation. Our target up here is, of course, the hillside area. That's our down the road target. But our immediate request is to augment the water resource supply from both Rosita and then and Boneyard.
One of the things I thought interesting, look at that map too, is that Boneyard one, there's not a lot of overlap like there is between the
No.
main station.
Yeah.
So it's not like, yeah, we've got 500 people up here. Well, yeah, but 200 of them are already being covered by another crop circle.
Correct.
So I thought that was interesting about that one
Right.
in Boneyard is there's
Yeah.
not much overlap on that.
Well, and the true figure is difficult because it's actual load miles.
Right.
So if you drew a shape that actually showed 5
Yeah, it'd
load
be a
miles from every home.
Yeah.
it
Polygon?
looked like an amoeba on there. So
Yeah, yeah.
The circle is the best representation we can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Good. Further discussion, gentlemen? public comment?
Do we know yet any numbers on how much this is going to lower insurance?
I was given a number, and I had talked, and it was a number that was so significant, and that I
Didn't believe it.
Didn't believe it, but it gave me all the impetus I needed to begin to contact people to see if we couldn't fill this need of placing these tenders immediately. But then I got a letter from him about a week later that was obviously a corporate letter, kind of ending the 9-month process of assessment, and it clearly says, and I've worked with this guy for 9 months, and there was a lot of privy information that was never said to be privy, but the letter said, while I cannot / will not tell you the final rate, you will be very happy when you open the envelope. So I'm thinking, okay,
So not from a 9 to an 8, most likely.
it's
That
not
would
from
be-
a 9 to an 8, which is significant because he gave me some examples of even how that could affect people. So yeah, but it'll be highly impactful.
How soon will you get that letter?
4 to 6 months. I'm sorry, 4 to 6 months.
From now?
Yes, it's in a queue, and it's actually a little less than that, but let's just say 4 to 6 months. It's a long queue process of going through, even in the days of computers.
And so I said, well, how is having this water tender there for 8 weeks going to help on a long-term thing? And it's just stopgap
It's
measure,
just stopgap.
correct? I mean, that's
all it
what I
is.
told them. I said,
That's all it is.
we're going to put this in there until they can
And
get.
it meets our verbal commitment. We committed to these guys. I said, we're going to make this happen. So, based on that, and the letter that I got from him said, based on your commitment, good work, I'm sending this in with this in place. So
It's taken a lot of creativity to make this happen because if we were to truly do all of the things that are necessary, we would have cisterns every half a mile down the county roads and the ability to take care of them. But having mobile water is a more practical thing for us. And having the substations where we do that mobile water can extend out a lot farther.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a new method. This is something that Dave has come up with in negotiation it's going to make this possible. So you're kind of the last link in helping us out.
Yes.
This
Yeah,
short-term
we
measure.
appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Just a short-term thing,
Good. Further discussion, gentlemen?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion, which states authorizing the use of one of our water trucks to go to the Boneyard substation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. Mr.
Do you want a formal IGA
Yes.
for this then? Okay.
I think we better.
Who will sign it on behalf of the Fire Protection District?
I guess you would.
Chief himself.
I can do it.
Sure.
All right. Whose insurance is going to be primary on this while you're using it?
I've been told that the county's insurance will cover this because it will be driven by a county employee only.
Right.
Okay.
So, but we still have, we indemnify. For example, if we have to commandeer equipment, we have insurance that immediately covers that equipment. So I think we're comfortable in either case.
Is
Well,
it
if
officially
damage was
known
done to
as-
the firehouse, we would take over in
Yeah.
case like that. So it's good.
Is it officially known as the Boneyard Park Substation?
Just the Boneyard substation.
Boneyard
Where the
Substation?
hell's the boneyard?
Junkins Park.
Drive up the hill and turn right, and as soon as you see the bones.
Off of Bear Basin.
Bear Basin.
It's back behind Bear Basin, about 4 miles.
Yeah.
5 miles north. Bear Basin. Yeah.
All right, I'll
That's where
prepare
you find the
something. I'll send
bones.
it to you, Kit, to look at and see if it looks okay for you, and then I'll present it to them. But we can make, since it's been approved as today, it would be effective immediately.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience this morning. I know
That's
that-
okay.
Thanks
Sorry,
for your comment.
it's got lengthy. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to pursue, commissioners, and I'll throw it out now, is the possibility of scheduling a workshop or a special meeting, which would be my preference, and try to get these players back to the table with the broadband tower project. Do you think that you can schedule one now? Do you want to wait and talk to them, or?
Schedule it.
Make them come.
I would move that we schedule a special meeting Wednesday, April the 3rd, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Not a continuation of our BOCC meeting, but a special meeting.
2 o'clock?
2 o'clock. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
We moved and seconded to schedule a special BOCC meeting on Wednesday, April 2nd at 2 p.m. for the express purpose of inviting Economic Development Company, Economic Development Administration rep, most likely Mr. Trent, and the commissioners to have a discussion how we move forward with the broadband tower.
So you're asking for Trent and the Vogels company?
Yep,
Okay.
and DOLA, a rep, and
Yeah.
obviously we can ask Ms.
Good.
Meredith to contact those people.
And that's an official BOCC.
That would be a, yes.
Special meeting, not a workshop.
Special meeting, not a workshop. Discussion, gentlemen? I did get a second, correct?
You did.
Yep. Any public comment? Go ahead, sir.
I think it would behoove us to maybe come up with questions, maybe even actually, I'd like to submit them to them ahead of time so that they can answer it. So if it's okay, why don't I come up with some and I'll email it to you folks and.
Yeah, let's go over those internally before we send those out.
Yeah, I was going to do it between the three of us.
Perfect. Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of a special meeting on Wednesday, April 3rd at 2 o'clock, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Carries. Madam, we good?
Yeah.
Okay. We can clean up some of the
Little
details.
desk for you over there. Okay.
Thank you.
You said it started at
2 o'clock. I would ask, gentlemen, if wow. Oh, if we could move to the sheriff's item of business, which I'm struggling here.
It's the next on the list anyway.
Oh, it is next. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second it, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's get it over with, move on.
So my next one on my agenda is the consideration of planning and zoning fees, but I'm not looking at the agenda we were given today, so
And there was one.
that's what I'm digging for. That's why I was struggling. There. Floor is yours, sir. Welcome. Morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good.
Afternoon. So you have a copy of the Forest Service agreement. Really, I just need, we're not obligating the county to any money. I just given that to you for your reading pleasure. But what that is, it's the same agreement that carries over. We've had in effect for years and years, long before I was even the sheriff. The only thing that's changed on it this year is, so I guess I should just back up and tell you what it is. So what it is it's an MOU for reimbursement from the Forest Service to the county for patrols and activities that we do in the Forest Service. Because the Forest Service only has one law enforcement officer for the entire region of the Pikes Peak, San Isabel area, specifically in this area. As you can imagine, we get called to lots of activities that occur in the forest that aren't necessarily our responsibility, but nobody else is going to show up if we do. So what the Forest Service does is we have different routes that are agreed upon with the Forest Service and us, you know, the different campgrounds and trailheads and so forth that we try to get into and patrol a little bit and just check on folks. They reimburse us. That's been $8,700 as long as I've been in office now. Well, they just bumped that to $10,000 a year. I think last year we billed them for $14,000 or $15,000, knowing that they only reimburse us for $8,700. But just that's how much, because again they pay us on a mileage and a time basis. So we just log our hours. It's a pretty simple process for us. The one thing they did change this year is early on in 2015 and 2016, they allowed us to purchase up to $2,400 in equipment So if we needed something specifically that we were going in the, the forest, like a radio or something, they would allow us to purchase that and then reimburse us for it. Then they changed that in 17 and 18 to where it was only for time. Now they're going back and they're saying up to 49% of that $10,000 could be used on equipment. I don't plan on doing equipment because we can easily justify it just off of time and mileage. So
Okay, good.
it's pretty simple, no obligation from the county. We're going to do it anyways.
In the Forest Service world, what's a dispersed site? Is that just a general open area that you could drive in and walk around? It's not a campground there
Right.
necessarily?
Right.
And there was no carryover from 2018? That
No.
money was expended? And it
Yes.
is on a reimbursed basis?
It is, and we only bill them we bill once a year. They allow us to do monthly, but quite frankly, I don't want to have to do it monthly. So we just submit it in November, and then they reimburse us. Usually we get it in January.
And you've always reimbursed them actual, whatever it is, whether it's 10,000 or 10 or 6.
Yeah, so
That's a good thing to do, because that may be why they bumped it up, too.
well, so the reason they bumped it up actually is, the Forest Service allocates X amount of dollars in the Forest Service system with counties across the state, across the West.
Sure.
To do this. Well, talking to the forest this year, they had several counties that were allocating, X amount of dollars and never asked for reimbursement, never participated. So they had leftover money. Well, because it's the government, right? So if you don't use the money, then you lose the money. So he said, okay, well, he went through and looked at those of us counties that are using more than was allocated, and he's bumping that up to several of us. So,
See, if he hadn't been logging it, he wouldn't have known.
right, that's right.
Further discussion? Public comment?
Did we have a motion? I'll move. I don't think we had a
No,
motion.
I guess we didn't.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. I gave the floor, sorry.
I'll go
Thank
ahead
you.
and move that we approve application number 3, Exhibit A, to the Cooperative Law Enforcement Annual Operating Plan and Financial Plan between the Custer County Sheriff's Office and the USDA Forest Service as presented to us this morning.
I'll second.
We move to second to sign the cooperative annual operating plan between the sheriff and the Forest Service. Further comment? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. I will sign this. I don't know that we need to retain a copy.
I keep a copy, so, again, it's because it doesn't obligate the county to anything. I don't.
Right.
Could I ask 2 questions while you're
Certainly,
signing
go
that?
ahead.
So one is we have our year-end report done for the sheriff's office. My question is would you like for me to present that to you gentlemen in my presentation-wise, or do you want me to just send you an electronic copy and you can just peruse it at your convenience? It's up to you. I
Fairly
presented-
lengthy.
The chamber hosted a copy of the sheriff yesterday morning. I presented it at that meeting. I will see if I can get on to do that with the towns, but,
I'm good with electronic.
Yeah, me too.
all right. Second comment, hopefully it doesn't take up any time, but found out last night at about 6:30 or so that the Assembly has decided to send the House Bill 1177, the red flag bill, to the House floor today. But it was not on the schedule. They threw it in there at last minute. So that's going to go to the House floor today. So obviously none of us are going to be there to testify because we didn't know about it. We had planned for a large contingency of sheriffs to be there for that.
That's why they did it.
And maybe that's why they did it, I don't know. But something that I would ask this board to consider is we may need Mr. Smith to start looking at what happens if this does pass and then I don't enforce it. And how,
For a new sheriff.
and how we would go about that. And he may just need to reach out. I know we have, CSOC is going to be looking into some of it as well. We're looking at maybe filing an injunction pretty quick after it passes. Obviously, you can't do that until it passes. But we may need a strategy. Hopefully we can avoid it, and hopefully the judges in our judicial district know and understand the dynamics, and they won't press to hold me in contempt for it. But
Wouldn't hurt to have, you have a good relationship with other sheriffs, maybe get some info, how they gonna handle it.
right. Well, we're working on that. Because it'll come to pass at some point. And,
Sure.
And hopefully maybe a court, when it goes to the court right away, the court's going to be like, I'm not doing this. This is unconstitutional. But again, we don't have any guarantees on that yet. So.
They'll take it to the Ninth Circuit Court in California.
Yeah.
Oh, good. They probably will.
All right, sir, thank you.
Okay, so
Appreciate it.
something to consider.
Yep. I'm assuming you would forward any appropriate communications you get from the sheriffs
Sure.
to Mr.
Absolutely.
Smith.
And I'll keep you appraised as I've done throughout the process. So.
Very good. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, gentlemen.
You plan on coming to the meeting on the 29th? When we
Yes,
consider,
yeah, the marijuana topic, yes, sir.
Very good.
Where's that gonna be at up there?
That'll be in West Cliff.
Can't be.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We're not coming after your grow, John.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure my
We'll see you guys
agenda
tomorrow.
was back on track.
Thanks, Shannon.
See you guys. Have a good day.
You bet. See ya. Next item of business, consideration of the planning and zoning fee schedule. We had a workshop last week to meet with the zoning officer and discussed some possible changes in her fee. That no decisions were made, so we obviously put it on the agenda today.
So let me grab it bull by the horn before Jay does. I would like to move that we, after having had a great workshop with a lot of lengthy discussion on every one of these fees, I move we accept the proposed fees as a result.
Okay? Been moved and seconded to accept the proposed fees for planning and zoning for their fee schedule. Discussion.
Long overdue. I just would like to make the comment that was made to us, just to repeat it, that back in, I believe it was 2008,
Yep.
these fees were reduced to the place where they are now because the economy was in not very good shape. And there has been no increase since 2008, so we're looking at 11 years since there's been an increase. This is long overdue. We look closely at what other counties are doing, and while it was very hard to compare apples and apples because they call their things differently, we feel that Custer County, with the increase, is still very conservative compared with our neighbors. So I feel very comfortable with the proposal that was given to us to approve it.
Yeah, I would second that statement, Jay. These are reasonable too, and considering the inflation and cost of money over that period of time, these are very reasonable.
Yeah, and just for a point of clarification, these truly are zoning fees, they're not building permits. A lot of counties operate on a building permit basis, we do not. We are a land use county, so the fees, for all intents and purposes, appear to be building permits, but they are actually zoning permits, so. And for the record, the one that probably will affect the most people was on a residential intended for habitation. The existing fee is 35 cents a square foot. That will, if the motion passes, move to 60 cents a square foot with a 3 times the amount for a post-construction permit. If somebody fails to get that permit in advance and then they start their project and then come in and want a permit, that would cost them $1.80 a square foot if the motion passes. So there's some others. There's a lot of fees in here, including septic, home occupation, zoning
Signage.
issues, lot land, signage, SUP, PUD fees, and so we will certainly post these on the website if this motion passes. Further discussion, gentlemen? Public comment?
I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
At the workshop, you stated there would be 3 reasons, possible reasons for doing this. One would be to cover the costs of her office, and since that's already covered, that was not applicable. The second one was for revenue for the
Yes,
county, and the
increased
third
revenue.
was as a tool to limit growth. So under those options, I would like to know your reasons for doing this.
My perspective would be keeping costs in line and a revenue stream in order to do things to make these possible, to get to the roads to
So for
accommodate
county
building
revenue.
and revenue for those kinds of things, my point of view.
Okay?
Yeah, I think after speaking with Jackie, I don't think this 60 cents a square foot is going to be a huge revenue stream for her.
What was it before?
35.
Yeah,
I think it will increase that, but I don't look at this as a huge revenue
It's not a
generator.
huge
for the
revenue
district.
generator.
But that's your reason.
As a revenue generator? It's part of it, yes. I think the majority of it is to cover the cost of her operations out of that department. I don't believe this is significant enough to call this a tool to help manage your target growth.
No. But from what Tom just said, Jackie, because it does help, even though you made a statement, it says her costs are covered right now. However, because the increase in growth and the pressure on her to get out to these septic systems that are being put in and then come back and do something else could require some additional help. So we're looking at the future a little bit.
Commissioner Prince, any comment?
No, I think it's been 11 years since we had an increase. We were way below the surrounding counties. I thought the discussion we had was very positive. I think Ms. Hobby did an excellent job in presenting her case, and I felt that these increases are reasonable.
I would move to amend your motion, sir, by adding the words effective immediately.
To add it, you said?
Is there a second?
Yeah, I don't know when else we would do it.
I'll second it, but for discussion.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to amend the motion by adding the words effective immediately. Discussion?
I think you got a warrant.
My concern about doing it immediately is notice to builders to give them an opportunity to understand what's going on before they just hit with a little higher fee. So my feeling is if there's any kind of in the works, or, I mean, I'm just imagining that conversations are going on in the planning and zoning office, and they go, oh, by the way, yesterday it was 35 cents, now it's 60 cents. It just seems appropriate to me that maybe we should give some
She needs
minimal
time to have a
notice.
sign in the office.
Yeah, just a little notice to whoever's affected by this.
What do you think?
And most laws don't go into effect for 30 days after we vote. I'm not sure that 30 days or a week or a month, I mean, if you want to do it April 1st, I mean, just some period of time to give people some notice. That's my only concern.
Okay, point taken. Originally, in our workshop, I had talked about April 1st, and you said, well, when else would we do it? Originally, I was going to suggest April 1st. I spoke with Jackie at length yesterday. She told me that she has had a conversation with all of her predominant builders, not maybe every one of them, but most of the people that come in and do business with her. She has had a conversation. Her comment to me was most of those builders said, well, we're certainly surprised it didn't happen in February, but this probably should have happened a lot sooner. I don't have a lot of buy-in, but Jackie asked me to consider, asked me to have the board consider having it effective immediately. Wasn't my idea. So,
Well, I think just in my knowledge of what's going on construction-wise, being in it a little bit, I think there are some people that are probably from out of state getting ready to come in here because it's springtime, and I know that for true. I think giving them a 30-day notice is reasonable personally.
and I know this will sound a little contrite, but that was exactly what Jackie's comment to me was, why we should do it immediately.
Oh.
You can ask her, you don't have to take my word for that, but that is exactly what she said. She said, I believe we're going to get an onslaught of permits in the next 30 to 60 days. She said, I'd like to have it effective immediately.
Well, if I may, sir, knowing this additional information that she has spoken to the predominant builders, I have no issue with this immediately.
Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on the amendment to the agenda, which states by,
Amendment to the motion.
did I say agenda?
Yes.
Oh, God.
I would like to get on with the agenda.
Amendment,
That's probably
we'll vote on the amendment to the motion, which would state, adding the words effective immediately. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment carries. Any further discussion on the motion, which says to approve the proposed planning and zoning fee schedule to become effective immediately? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will indicate to Miss Jackie that action has been taken. Next item of business on the agenda is consideration of the cooking matters. Certificate of insurance. I'm assuming, gentlemen, you'd have an opportunity to look into this. Obviously, Cooking Matters is a program offered by the Custer County Kids Council. It's really kind of a housekeeping item here. We need to authorize a certificate of insurance so that it's SOS, and I forget now what that is about. Let me...
Share our strength.
Yeah, thank you. Share Our Strengths out of Washington, D.C. that helps implement this whole program. So I spoke to Miss Donna at some length about this. They don't know exactly. They believe that the cost of this certificate of insurance would run between $75 and $100. It's an annual thing when that Cooking Matters is in place, and currently it is scheduled to be held Mondays and Thursdays.
In the courthouse?
No, at Valley Bible Church from May 2nd to May 20th. So that's the length of time we're talking about. This certificate of insurance primarily deals with somebody who gets burned on a stove, poked with a knife, poked in the eye with a fork, that kind of stuff.
It's $1 million.
I believe it was, yes.
$1 million.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
My feeling is that this Cooking Matters, the whole program is to teach people how to prepare their own meals as opposed to going to the grocery store and buying very expensive prepared meals that they just put in a microwave or an oven. Many times those have, higher salt content and sugar and things that aren't quite as healthy as if you cook it yourself. But more importantly, it's very, very expensive compared to doing it yourself. So this is teaching people how to be more self-sufficient. It's a wonderful program, and I think the nominal fee is well worth it.
Good. And I did fail to mention, this program is underwritten by Arthur J. Gallagher, Inc., which is the insurance company that deals a lot with CCI and CTSI. So, further discussion, gentlemen? Yes.
Well, I don't have the certificate of insurance itself. What I have is a partnership agreement that I was given.
Okay.
And that, I'm looking at that, it talks about insurance in there, but what you're discussing is something separate.
Yeah, I've got the certificate of insurance request form.
Okay. So this partnership agreement that I'm looking at because it doesn't identify who the partner would be. It's between share our strength and
Right.
then partner.
Yes.
Is that something that Cookie or Kids Council or other is doing on its own, or?
Yeah, that would be Kids Council.
All right, so this is just the insurance part of it?
Yes.
And Donna's okay with it?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as Donna's okay with that shit.
Wow. I'm waiting for the day he says, as long as Tom's okay with it, I'm good.
Ain't happening, Tom.
No, I don't
Sorry.
think that's happening. No, I'm not going to hold my breath. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anything else? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of authorizing the certificate of insurance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. We will communicate that to Kathy at Custer County Kids Council. Good?
Yeah.
Was there a motion before, or did you move? I don't think there was a second. Did I miss it?
I seconded the motion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
you made the motion.
Jay made the motion.
I don't think there was a motion.
Oh, am I?
Well, maybe there was. We just think there was.
I move to approve.
Now Jay
Just in
did.
case.
Tom did second.
I move to approve that the county issue a certificate of insurance to the Custer County Kids Council for this particular program.
My mistake.
Well done.
I
Thank you.
will second that motion. Oh,
It was a test.
I didn't get the roll call, but I got this.
okay. Further discussion?
Now you're on the
I don't know
ball.
how we even got to discussion.
You're on it.
Oh, so we did.
Public comment? Hearing none, we will vote again. All in favor of authorizing the certificate of insurance with cooking matters, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. Yeah, no kidding. Consideration of the new airport board member. We have had communication from an interested party and was forwarded on from the airport board for Mr. J.C. Nandon for a 3-year ex officio term starting immediately. What's the group's pleasure?
I'll move that we accept the airport board chairman's recommendation to appoint him as an ex officio member. We did have that discussion out there. I met him. He's a very sharp guy.
Been moved and seconded. Debate?
Now.
Discussion?
I did meet with him. You're good jumping in there. I did meet him. He is a ex-NASA operations satellite guy. Knows the aerospace world very well, and he's living up here. He was with NASA programs for over 20 some odd years, 30 years, Johnson Space Center. So he's a great addition with a different perspective, and I support him 100%.
I read the resume, I absolutely agree. Sounds like a fine person to be on the board. I've kind of an off-the-wall question. Ex officio members of the airport board, are they voting members or not?
No, they.
So let me ask this question. This is not a real question, and I think it's more general, and maybe it's not even appropriate here, but why do we even have ex officio members?
I don't know.
I mean, if someone's not a voting member, you're always welcome to come. Every board I've ever sat on, they not only include, but they encourage anybody in the audience to come speak. I mean, do we really need it?
That's a good question, and we can ask them. It's in their bylaws, so
Yeah, I understand.
we can change that.
Well, typically,
Probably beyond the scope of this.
There's an issue with this.
most of the time, it's been my experience in Custer County anyway, that ex officio members, by rule of their bylaws, typically aren't voting members. By parliamentary law, they are always voting members unless specified otherwise in the bylaws. The idea being that they can have an unlimited number of ex officio members on a board that might be limited otherwise. I don't know if that's the case here or not, I forgot to research that, but.
That quorum issue.
Well, no, the bylaws may say
Oh, it'd be limited.
your board would be limited to 8 people.
Like,
The idea with ex officio member is that they could bring somebody on, this is a great example, that would have a serious background and knowledge base that wouldn't otherwise be available to be on a board if it had reached its limits as far as their membership roster. So because this set of bylaws for the airport says they're non-voting, then welcome to do everything except make motions, vote, or second motions. So I think they're bringing him on for his knowledge base.
I'm delighted to have, like I said when I first opened my mouth, highly qualified, sound like a great person. It was more a question of,
We'll have that conversation.
What's ex officio, why are we doing it?
Yeah, and the word is, obviously, as the Latin translation is by your office or by the office. He doesn't have an office, but by his knowledge base, they'd like to bring him on. Certainly met him, very nice gentleman, obviously extremely intelligent, and they're excited about him. They really hope we could put him on. So, further discussion, the JC is the initials NAND and NANDIN. 3-year ex officio term. Starting immediately. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. We will communicate that to the airport board as well. Oops.
I would like to insert, ex officio is also a line of underwear that REI offers.
That's why we pay him the big dollars for his advice.
We like to stay informed in this.
And I could actually prove that at this very moment.
No. We're good. We're good. No, I take you at your word, sir.
Your underwear has no vote.
Yeah, your underwear doesn't have a vote in this deal. Next item of business, gentlemen, resolution 19-03. It's a budget resolution. We need to deal with the money from OT 6. Commissioner Canada, would you like to take the lead, or are you okay on this? We've got $62,750 donated, correct?
We had 62,750, yes.
Yeah, and that needs to be moved into the capital improvement
Right.
fund.
So
That's really what this is all about.
that's what it's all about. It's been donated, they just got to get it where it needs to go so that it
Yes.
can be spent.
Yes,
correctly.
and we need to do that via a resolution. I would move that we sign Resolution 19-03, a resolution appropriating additional sums of money to defray expenses in excess of amounts budgeted for Custer County, which is really the nuts and bolts of this.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to sign Resolution 19-03. Discussion.
Just one quick one. We're going to do more of these, apparently. We're going to have more money donated, or is this a...
This gets us up to current.
Just to make it current?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
This is, just for the record, offsetting a donation from David R. Watts.
Right.
Correct.
So it's not out of reserves or anything,
Right.
it's just, we received the donation, we're moving it into
Needs to be
capital.
put in the right...
Exactly right.
Needs to be put in the right pot.
I just want the record to reflect that.
Yeah, and maybe because we've kind of been used to this, somebody that may be hearing this for the first time, I mean, I would sit back in my chair and go, could you repeat that, please? David Watts, the owner of OT 6 Ranch, has donated $62,750 over several projects to the county to offset the expenses of improvements at the airport.
Wow.
So we have,
Coming, isn't it?
yeah, that's
And-
what Bill was saying. There's
yeah.
going to be more.
And
but-
that more is up to $1.3 million, roughly, or $1.1 million.
So we need, this is a housekeeping item, we need to move this donation money into our capital improvement fund for the airport. So that's what this is.
That's terrific.
Yeah, pretty wild. Further discussion? Public comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Carries. We will, all three need to sign this.
Thank you. Be welcome. Let me borrow your pen,
No.
this one's weak.
That's your copy. And moving on, last item I have on the agenda is discussion of water issues. Commissioner Canada, I believe you requested that.
Roger
The
that.
floor is yours. You give that to.
Yeah, all I asked, just to continue our talk about moving forward. Jay mentioned in your comments up front that we had an interesting meeting in Tom as well with the Upper Ark. And at the end of the meeting, Jay and I both were there, last dogs to leave practically. And we made it very clear that we were, made sure that they understood Custer County objected to the filing and that we were all wanting to move forward with the future. And so part of that future, and this is why I wanted to have this discussion, was how do we work even the resolution of the objections that are currently filed to make sure their county's interests are being held, as well as anything else. We are members of the Upper Ark Board. We're not withdrawing from that, at least now. And if we're going to continue, I had proposed that we consider a committee of some kind of people, citizens of the county, to be in contact with their committee. And so in discussion about that, that's what sort of confused the front end of the meeting. I don't know why Bob Senderhoff brought it up when he did, but he started discussing the fact that there's these committees that are being tossed around. So they do have a committee. I went and did research that at least last couple of days, and they claim the name of that committee is the Blue Line Augmentation East Expansion Committee. That's their full name. It's put in place in 2016, apparently. So that would be a point of contact to consider. And so what I'm going to do is pursue who, what, when, and where, and what they're proposing to be our involvement, how we would work if we go down this route. And what I'd like to ask you guys to consider is, I've got some suggested names that we could use to help us. I've talked to several of them. If you got somebody in mind that we might do, and we might want to think about how many people we would want to be involved there. Their committee consists of about 6 people. Includes their engineer, the hydrologist, a couple other people, including representatives. I think the chairman of the board and Skanger are on it as well. So anyway, something to think about. Just toss around here as we go forward. Any comments, thoughts?
I certainly, my position hasn't changed any with Upper Ark.
This has nothing to do with the current filing, except what I just mentioned. I just want to make sure we got to move, if we're going to move forward.
Yeah, this whole Blue Line Expansion Committee, I have formally requested a copy of the minutes from Upper Ark that indicated when and how that committee was formed. I haven't heard back. I don't expect to, but I did request that.
Hope it jives with what he told me.
Probably not going to get a lot of support from me on this Blue Line Expansion Committee, mostly because of just exactly what the name implies, that the county, or that the Upper Ark, in my opinion, is looking to encompass our entire county with the water on.
That would be the reason that I would care, because we don't want them doing something if we're not involved, interacting with whoever the appropriate people are to fight it. Information or
You know how I feel. I've been very vocal about my feelings about the process and what has taken place. I feel it should have been incumbent upon them to come to us and say, we are considering an expansion of our control over, I don't even want to say that, but expanding the blue line so that more of Custer County falls into the augmentation plan. Okay. They not only failed to come to us, they filed this behind our back. And if it wasn't for San Isabel, I don't know about you folks, but me personally, I got this letter from San Isabel, help us oppose this. Almost fell over when I read that. How did this occur? The filing had already taken place. I think at some point in the future, if we stay members of our Arkansas Board of Conservancy District, and I think that's a discussion that
ultimately we're going to have. Either we're going to work as a team, or we're going to boot them off the team, or we'll boot ourselves off the team. What I'm trying to say is, you're trying to make a team member of them who has spit in our face. And I don't know any nice way to say it. We talked about spittoons earlier, somebody used that term also.
Not going to drink that one either.
And what I'm trying to say is, they have done not one thing to help or encourage us, to be a partner with us, to ask our advice and consult with us. They did this entirely behind our back. I'm going to have a very hard time getting this committee together while this plan is still at that court. If they take Custer County out, if they amend their filing and remove Custer County and say, can we sit at a table and talk about why we're doing it, what we're doing, and how we're doing it, and how it will affect Custer County, I will be 100% in favor of discussion. But until something like that happens, I'm not going to be in favor of sitting at a table with them to work something out that they did behind our back.
Okay, here, but what I don't want to do is hide my head in the sand and have stuff go on around us, and look, if it continues, if we don't get engaged, how do we prevent it, and how do we get them to, we got to build some trust somehow so that they do, I don't know why it happened the way it did, but it doesn't matter. I want to fix it. And in order to not have something else even worse happen, and also when in my discussion when I asked him about this thing, Skanga told me that he wants, from their point of view, they want to fix what happened also, and maybe in the process of doing that we can either get them to, if we get it, it's going to take years to resolve the filing as it is. I don't want to sit here for 2 years and have other things go on. Well, that's getting resolved. If we can get engaged enough to, if it's something new. Could be some filing in Chaffee County that could impact Custer County, see what I'm saying? And we need to understand that in order to help get the education on this side to where we know what we're going to do.
Bill, I'm with you. Just talk is the way it needs to go, negotiation. However, the first action that must be taken on their part is to take Custer County, amend us out, and then if we buy in, and if our ranchers buy in, and if our water users buy in, then we can amend us back in. And what gets me is we had 50 some odd, I don't know the exact number of people, entities that have filed a protest. At the meetings we've had, with just very, very few exceptions, the majority of the water right holders said, I don't want it, I want out of here. And unless they're willing to comply with the county's wishes, I just don't see there's anything to move forward at this point. Now, if they say, we're amending it, we're taking it out, let's come to the table, I will sit there right next to you and let's work out a deal. But until that happens, I don't feel it's in our best interest, ours, the county's best
I'm
interest.
100% with you. What he told me is that in the process of working it out with each objection, they will amend whatever it is in order to satisfy the injury or not. That's what he said. Now, part of it is meaning they admit they change the blue line, they move it, they get rid of it, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen today, but in the meantime, I don't have a problem. But from my own point of view, in my own district within Custer County, it matters. Water matters to all of us, and so I don't want to let some grass grow under our feet and get something, to have it be a case where we find out that something that we signed and we didn't understand the details of the contract we signed because we didn't pay enough attention to it. I want to pay more attention, that's all I'm trying to say.
I'm with you, and that is the reason why I've asked Meredith to put on the March 29th agenda a discussion of potentially hiring a water attorney from the county to tell us what are our options. I don't feel comfortable that we know. But I will tell you this, the people have spoken loud and clear with no uncertain terms. This plan is not the one they want. So we told that to the Upper Ark. Upper Ark didn't even give a second to the motion to remove us.
That's right.
That tells me that, except for the one person who made the motion, that they really are not very wiggle roomy in here. That's my legal term. So let me finish. So my feeling is we need to be proactive. We need to protect our water. We need to, A, find out what are our rights, what can or can we not do, and only an expert can tell us that. And getting a committee together, I'm 100% for it once they make the one move they must make, and that is to remove us from the plan until we have a concurrence of what we want. Sorry.
Yeah, my perspective is, I said it hadn't changed any. I oppose the augmentation plan. I certainly would not support any expansion of an augmentation plan as things stand the way they are today. I don't believe that I would agree to be on this Blue Line Expansion Committee because I wasn't in favor of the Blue Line in the first place. So I certainly can't support the Blue Line Expansion Committee. That's where I'm at.
Well, I'm not proposing we be part of that expansion committee at all. You misunderstood.
Well, I'm not saying that you said that. I'm just saying I don't want to be part of it.
Part of dealing with Upper Ark is what you're saying.
So, of the Blue Line Expansion Committee, that was the, I thought that was the topic we were talking about.
Well, no, the topic is putting something together that we, the county, with the right people that are affected by water, and either have issues because somebody came to them wanting to augment water because they want to do get a house built or whatever, or whether it's a company wanting to buy their water rights, that we interact or have interaction with the Upper Ark so that we understand what's necessary to get the right people in here to help us understand the impacts and the injury or not, and talk to us. But that didn't happen to us in the past. That's my point. And all they did was propose that whoever we use and however we want to do that, to enhance transparency with those guys, that they would suggest talking to the guys that are actually working issues. Now, whether it's and they proposed that Blue Line Expansion Committee guys, because those are separate to the board. It's not going to the board and interacting with the board in their meetings. That's a separate process. We've already got our representatives on that board, and so do all the other counties. It's how do we bring more interaction and make sure we learn more before they become law, water law.
You know, I saw the list of the people who were on their Blue Line Committee.
You did?
I did. And every one of them was sitting at that table a couple days ago, because those are the people who voted.
Yeah, that's not all of them.
Not a single one of them seconded the motion to withdraw.
That's a good point.
I'm having very strong, I'm not trying to be emotional about this. I'm looking at our water rights for the future. I have major concerns about what is going on, how it's being done, and
So do I.
where we stand. I'm not ready to sit down at the table with them until they make a single move, and that is to remove Custer County, the new filing, remove Custer County from it. Now let's sit down. Unless that happens, my personal feeling is I have nothing to say to them at this point that I haven't already